Chapter 709. After ending the call, Night Ghost Spirit Emperor's frown instantly relaxed a lot. What he was most worried about was Huaxio's customs. If they were stopped there, their master plan would definitely be affected. Taking the initiative to sneak into the remains this time was a very important factor. Huaxio Nation's higher-ups would definitely send numerous experts to protect the remains. If they didn't seize this opportunity, the entire plan would be extremely difficult. But now that they had passed customs, Night Ghost Spirit Emperor was much more relieved. The only thing that was somewhat unexpected was the ghost head blade that Dylan had mentioned. He had never heard of this assassin's name before. Was he actually the third disciple of the legendary numinous mother with the axe? Night Ghost Spirit Emperor was extremely curious about this person's identity. What kind of person was numinous mother with ghost hatchet? This was a grandmaster-level killer, and it was said that his two disciples, Gorgeous Itinerant and Taoist Taotai, had only learned a little from him, but they had already reached the top and become two epic stars in the world of killers. Then who on earth was this ghost headblade? At Night Chief's headquarters, Night Ghost Spirit Emperor rested his head in his hands, looking like he was deep in thought. A moment later, he raised his head and looked at a staff member in the lab. Can you help me investigate Ghost Headblade's background from the dark web? Sir Spiritual Venerable, please wait a moment. The worker nodded slightly. A few minutes later, a document on Ghost Headblade was printed out and delivered to Night Ghost Spirit Emperor. After carefully reading the information, Night Ghost Spirit Emperor's eyes suddenly lit up. So that's what happened. July 31st, Monday in the 15th week of the semester. Planned by Huaxio Alliance, personally approved by Secretary Dakong of the Alliance of 10,000 Schools, and led by the General Administration of 100 schools, the summer camp in Beast King's remains officially began. In the public square of Peiyuan District, several Foundation Establishment high school students who had been selected for this summer camp were driving buses to the side of the square. At 10 o'clock in the morning, there were over 1,000 Foundation Establishment students gathered here. Apart from that, there were also many teachers dressed in white Taoist robes standing at the side of the plaza, keeping the students in order. Huaxio Alliance had personally selected these teachers to protect the team from different schools in Songhai City, and Huaxio Alliance had arranged for them to wear the same Taoist robes. Their main task was to ensure the safety of the students on this trip. Headmaster Chun, Old Lee and Old Antique were all present at number 60 high school. Wang Ling heard that Teacher Pan was supposed to come as well, but because she was also teaching grade 3's Dao Talisman's class, she had directly given up. Of course, this was just the security on the surface. Huaxio Alliance's 10 generals, and the humanoid magic treasure, Head of State 001, which Huaxio Alliance had developed, would also secretly protect them. Apart from that, there was also President Chi's remote planning. If necessary, the Heavenly E satellite could be mobilized at any time. The powerful protective formation looked as solid as an iron wall, but for some reason, Wang Ling still felt uneasy. He had a feeling that this trip would not go so smoothly. But not everyone shared Wang Ling's awareness. This is my first time seeing Huaxio Alliance's Taoist robes. He's so cool. In the queue, someone couldn't help but take a photo and wanted to post it on his WeChat Moments to show off. However, this student's phone was quickly taken away by a black-faced teacher dressed in a snow-white Taoist robe. Didn't your school's teachers tell you that taking photos is prohibited throughout this summer camp? The student lowered his head and blushed. It was very clear that his school teachers had specifically told him about this before the activity. Devil Valley Beast King's remains was originally a national-level protected secret land. In the past, only teams of experts personally approved by Huaxio Alliance had the right to enter for inspection. This year, a group of senior grade 1 students had been specially allowed to enter. Apart from providing a smokescreen for foreign forces, it was also in fact a trial run by the Alliance of 10,000 schools. For many students nowadays, there were some things that couldn't be learned in class. Thus, this was indeed a very rare opportunity to cultivate. But according to the teacher's instructions before they set off, they could only observe with their eyes, listen with their ears, feel with their hearts, and remember with their brains. Nothing about the secret land was allowed to be disclosed to the outside world. It was very clear that not all the students were honest people. After taking away the first phone, the teacher asked several times in a row, "Is there anyone else with electronic devices? Hand them over." The whole crowd instantly fell silent. After a long while, the teacher smiled slightly, took out a U-shaped magnet from his lapel, and tossed it into the air. All the electronic devices that the students in the line had on them, cell phones, wristwatches, Walkmans, and even tablets, were sucked away by this magnet. After taking away the electronic devices, the teacher continued to organize the line as if nothing had happened. The rest of the teachers looked as if they were used to this sight. Among the teachers who led the team, there were always some who played the role of the bad guy. It was very clear that these teachers had already made preparations to deal with this group of senior grade 1 students who were psychologically rebellious. Are they that strict? Superchun was startled, because his phone was one of the victims. "You deserve it. I told you that you shouldn't have brought it, but you just wouldn't believe me." Dopigua's expression was as if he had foreseen everything. "Before I came, I asked my uncle about it. A lot of the teachers leading the team this time were transferred over from Jinghua City. That black-faced one just now was one of them. Do you know Tianshi Imperial High?" These words caught Wang Ling's attention, because Tianshi Imperial High was Fangxing's school before he had transferred to number 60 High. Back then, after Immortal Shipai had been executed, Fangxing had been directly sent to Tianshi Imperial High to study, and he had grown up there. On the surface, it was a school for the nobility, but as far as Wang Ling knew, even if you had the money, you might not be able to study here. The students inside weren't simple, and neither were the teachers. Furthermore, a large portion of the core members of the Society of Saints, which specialized in recruiting foundation establishment elites from all over the country, had come from Tianshi Imperial High. Roughly 10 minutes later, under the coordination of the teachers, the thousands of students were divided into several dozen square formations based on gender, height, and school. They looked very orderly, like a guard of honor of the 3 armies. In front of each square formation stood a teacher leading the team. Lotus Sun and Feather Lin were in the next square formation, led by Old Antique himself. At first glance, Wang Ling realized that only his own square formation didn't have a teacher standing in front of it. Could it be that they hadn't been assigned yet? While he was wondering, Wang Ling saw a familiar black car slowly stop on the edge of the square in the distance. The moment Jai Ying got out of the car from the driver's seat, Wang Ling seemed to realize something. And then, just as he had expected, Wang Ling saw Dumbass in a white coat pass through the countless square formations and arrive in front of them. Wang Ming bared his teeth and smiled shamelessly. "Hello, students. I'm your teacher leading the team, Teacher Wang. You can also affectionately call me eldest brother Dai Dai." Chapter 710. As a researcher from the research consortium on this trip, Wang Ming's presence was completely expected. Furthermore, Head of State 001 was also in the experimental stage. If there was any problem with its operation, Wang Ming would be able to make adjustments in time. Wang Ming had the emergency brake button on Head of State 001 with him. In addition, President Qi had the remote brake program as a double precaution, but in an emergency situation, it would take time for the remote brake program to go from issuing the command to officially operating. Thus, the brake button on Wang Ming was a little safer. Right now, Head of State 001 was actually standing next to Wang Ming, but it was currently in invisible mode, and apart from Wang Ling and Fangxing, no one else present could see it. Right now, Head of State 001 was in guard mode, and the data on all the students and teachers on this trip had already been entered into its data vault. Once a dangerous person appeared, Head of State 001 would automatically take action. Thus, the reason why Wang Ming was confident in being the lead teacher was precisely because he had Head of State 001 with him. On the other side, Wang Ling also noticed that Jai Yin had also changed into Huaxiu Alliance's custom-made white Taoist robes, and had become the lead teacher for the other group of students. Seeing this, Wang Ling was already as clear as a mirror about the general situation. At that moment, Superchen suddenly asked, "Have I seen this teacher Wang leading the team somewhere before? He looks a little familiar." Dopigua nodded. "I also feel that he looks familiar." Wang Ling. During the joint military training exercise for the 6 schools previously, Wang Ming had gotten along well with Super Chen, Dopigua and the others. But after the military training was over, in order to protect Wang Ming's identity, Wang Ling had erased their memories of him. As for the feeling of déjà vu now, it was a subconscious sixth sense. Furthermore, Wang Ling's impression of Wang Ming was that he was a very easygoing person. Apart from restraining himself a little in front of Jai Yin, the rest of the time, he was always shameless. At that moment, more and more people had gathered in the square. Over 100 teachers and the research team's expert team were leading thousands of foundation establishment students deep into Beast King's remains to conduct research at the same time as the summer camp. This was quite new. But Wang Ling also noticed that there was no news of any media personnel in the vicinity of the square. In the early hours of the morning, martial law had already been imposed on the road with the square as the center. At that time, Wang Ling had actually speculated that the entrance to Beast King's remains might be in Peiyuan District's square. Based on the current situation, that should be the case. I didn't expect so many big shots to come to the ruins this time. Do you think our country will send the 10 generals to protect us since they value the ruins so much? Are these ruins really so dangerous? Super Chen asked curiously. Wang Ling, I've looked into it before. Devil Valley's Beast King relic is the tomb that Devil King left behind for himself. However, according to the rumors, the Devil King was stewed in his sleep. Of course, regarding the authenticity of this point, the current information is all different. There is no verification. Dopigua said, however, in order to decorate his tomb back then, Devil King once cultivated countless treasures in Devil Valley. This is also the reason why some resources that are now extinct can still appear in Devil Valley. As for whether there's any danger in Devil Valley, I heard that there isn't because there aren't any signs of life in Devil Valley. For the time being, it can be regarded as a botanical garden? Hearing this, the corners of Wang Ling's mouth twitched. Divine. Botanical garden. But just because there were no living creatures in Beast King's remains didn't mean there were no risks. After all, it was very likely that a small portion of the plants inside had already cultivated to become spirits. So they couldn't rule out the possibility that they could attack people. Furthermore, some of the extinct resources inside were highly toxic, which was something that needed to be taken care of. Apart from that, the natural environment inside Devil Valley was also a major danger. And the most dangerous part was the problem of entering and leaving Devil Valley. There wasn't a specific set time for the opening of Devil Valley. Usually, the officials would detect the fluctuations at the entrance of the secret land in advance, and then arrange for entering and exiting the valley in advance. Thus, it was very important for them to follow the instructions of the teacher leading the team throughout the operation this time. Although this was a summer camp, most of the students couldn't go overboard. Otherwise, if they were locked in Devil Valley and didn't go out with the rest of the team, it would be extremely dangerous for them to be alone in Devil Valley, with only a slim chance of survival. Thus, after listening to Dopigua's heavy analysis, many of the students couldn't help feeling a little nervous. When all was said and done, they were only at the foundation establishment stage, and most of them hadn't seen much of the world. Furthermore, if they really had to fight, although they had actual combat training courses in high school, they still couldn't compare with professionals who had truly received combat training. Combat courses were only gradually introduced after entering university. Everyone could choose different specializations based on their own strengths, such as specializing in a certain type of weapon or magic, and so on. Now that it was an era of peace, the Education Commission had become stricter with the passing of combat skills. Wang Ling also heard that next year, they would officially introduce a combat qualification certificate. Except in special circumstances to ensure their safety, only licensed cultivators were qualified to fight in an urban environment. Otherwise, it would be considered a violation of the rules. In the future, the school would organize a uniform qualification examination for students who met the requirements every year, but whether they could get a certificate was another matter. If they could get a certificate, they could get extra points when they looked for a job in the future, just like all kinds of other skills certificates on the market. As long as you follow the teachers in line and don't act on your own, it won't be a big problem, a teacher said to all the students at that moment. Everyone was blank. What did he mean by it wouldn't be a big problem? In other words, there was still a problem. About 10 minutes later, not long after Wang Ming, more than 10 ambulances with flashing warning lights drove up to the edge of the square. "Teacher Wang, what's this?" Little Peanut asked Wang Ming at that moment. "There's risk in the remains, so we've arranged for an antibody vaccine for everyone. This all-purpose antibody injection before entering the remains can neutralize 95% of the toxicity, even if you accidentally run into a poisonous plant," Wang Ming explained. "Antibody? Which company is this?" Lotus Sun, who was standing in the line next door, couldn't help asking after hearing Wang Ming's explanation. She was more familiar with medicine. "Don't worry, this is a legitimate company," Wang Ming quickly replied. "This time, Huaxiu Alliance is looking for serious partners. Not long ago, Changchun Biotechnology's vaccine went awry, and Gao Junfang, the unscrupulous dealer who made fake drugs, is now being punished. The Cultivation court sentenced her to life in prison, and then told her to use up all her fake drugs." Chapter 711. A lot of medical staff got out of the ambulances with boxes in their hands. There were more than 60 of them, and the vaccine injections began to be carried out in an orderly manner. These medical staff also wore uniforms designated by Huaxiu Alliance, which had the Huaxiu Alliance logo printed on their white coats. It wasn't just the students this time. Everyone had to be vaccinated, including the team of experts and the teachers who would be entering the remains. That was because a previous expert had gotten into trouble in Beast King's remains. Although he had come out alive in the end, because he hadn't been treated in time, the toxin had invaded his spine and directly paralyzed the lower half of his body. Thus, the antibody vaccine injection had become a must before entering Devil Valley. Not long after the ambulance arrived, Audiobook of Songhai City's General Administration of 100 schools also arrived at the scene. As soon as he got out of the ambulance, he immediately approached a young man with slicked back hair on one side of the square, and stretched out his hand. "Thank you, President Han Di, for your strong support this time. Our Songhai City doesn't have that many all-purpose antibody vaccines in stock. If it wasn't for President Han Di's support, we really wouldn't know what to do this time. Isn't this also a strong support for the development of our country's scientific research? If our country wants to develop, we have to rely on this new generation. I'm really looking forward to their future." President Han Di gave a very righteous smile, then looked at the 1,000-odd students in the square. Finally, his gaze fixed on Wang Ming. "I never thought there would be such a young academician in our country's scientific research team. Every generation produces talented people, and each will lead the way for hundreds of years." Ajwa smiled. He couldn't directly reveal Wang Ming's specific identity. This President Han Di was also very tactful, and didn't continue to ask about Wang Ming. Then President Han Di changed the subject. "Director Zhua, is this the entrance to the remains? According to the fluctuations, the entrance to the remains will indeed be in this square. If President Han Di is interested, we can witness the opening of the entrance. I heard that it will be a spectacular sight that even I haven't seen before." "Can I?" President Han Di asked. "Of course." Ajwa smiled. But this smile made President Han Di frown. For some reason, he felt that Ajwa was a little unreliable. At the same time, in the Huaxiu Alliance building in Jinghua City, Huaxiu Nation's Alliance of Cultivators headquarters, President Qi transferred the surveillance cameras in Peiyuan District Square, and the scene of Ajwa and President Han Di's chat was directly displayed on the big screen. 2,200, turn it up. President Qi instructed the staff member next to him. "Yes." In the headquarters, a technician in pitch-black overalls used space technology to directly extract the voices of Ajwa and President Han Di in a noisy environment. This technician with the work number 2200 had been specially transferred over from Magnificent Immortal. As Huaxiu Nation's top special operations force, the Magnificent Immortal Special Operations Brigade had its own independent technical staff organization. The name of this organization was Old Black, and this 2200 was an experienced member of Old Black. President Qi vaguely remembered that when Old Black had just been established back then, there had been no more than 10 people. Later, Magnificent Immortal had taken a fancy to them and incorporated them all. Who would have thought that after so many years, it had already grown to more than 1,000 people? Unfortunately, the whereabouts of Old Black 001 from back then was unknown. Of AI. In the staff members, the two then the Chi. Why do I feel that this President Handi is a little strange? General E frowned as he floated in the air with his hands behind his back. Chi President Yin. President Chi chuckled. This isn't the real President Handi at all. The real President Handi has already been swapped out. You already knew? General E raised an eyebrow. Of course, President Chi said. If I couldn't see through this little trick, it would be a waste of my title as Wisdom Saint. But I have to say that the other party's plan this time is very profound. If our customs hadn't stopped the real President Handi at the checkpoint, I'm afraid we would all have been kept in the dark. Furthermore, I suspect that they might have already seen through the real and fake remains smokescreen, so it's very likely that the other party has also sent two groups of people to enter the real and fake remains. Generally nodded, and then couldn't help sighing. In a situation where they couldn't be sure which side was real and which was fake, sending two groups of people was the most conservative choice. At the very least, the other party wouldn't mistake them for the wrong target. There was an advantage to this, and that was that the overall fighting strength of this foreign force would be halved. However, there was also a big risk that this foreign force might pose a threat to the students who entered the remains. Initially, we prepared the same scientific research team to deal with the fake remains, but since the other party has sent two groups of people, we naturally have to send out a fighting force to intercept those who try to enter the fake remains. Then who are we sending? General E was silent. He actually didn't know anything about this at all. Several of the 10 generals have the important task of protecting the students, so my plan for the fake remains is to have General Bai take some people with him and wipe them out. So it's Explosion Saint, that's right. In any case, it's the fake remains, so Explosion Saint can do whatever he wants. Even if they all blow up, it won't hurt. In addition, I've also released the few prisoners locked up in the special cells of prison number 1 to assist General Bai in battle. My junior brother is also going. President Chi nodded. This has already been approved by the head of state. This is a chance for them to atone for their crimes. Their codename is Mahjong Squad. General E. What should we do with the real President Handi now? This person has already been detained by customs, but I expect that after he comes out of seclusion and arrives in Mishio Nation, Night Chief will probably make a big move, and it's very likely that they'll get rid of the real President Handi. So I've already sent more people to beat them at their own game, and disguise themselves as the fleeing President Handi. Night Chief is ferocious. It's very risky for us to send people after them. Of course I know that, so the person we're sending this time isn't a person, but Head of State 001. Head of State 001? Isn't 001 with the children? That was the original plan, but in order to counter each move, this is the best choice, Yi Zichen said. You old Chi, according to you. General Yi's scalp went numb when he thought of this. You're right, the head of State 001 with Wang Ming now is in fact the head of state himself. Chapter 7:12. To be honest, before the plan had even started, President Dylan had already sensed that something was very wrong and suspicious in the air. Given Huaxiao Nation's tight customs defenses, how could he have passed through them so easily? There was most likely a trap here. And so, about a day before the operation began, President Dylan had received a lead on the remains. But according to this lead, although the entrances to the remains were both in Songhai City, the coordinates were completely different. There are actually two remains? President Dylan stared at the intelligence in his hands and was lost in deep thought. Sure enough, things weren't as simple as he had thought. One of the two remains had to be a smokescreen. Next to President Dylan, a young girl with a machete on her back and a white mask on her face in a gothic dress spoke in a shrill voice. Should we change the plan? This girl was none other than Numinous Mother's rumored third disciple, Ghost Headblade. No one, including President Dylan, had thought that Ghost Headblade's true identity would actually be a girl before they met her. President Dylan cupped his chin in his hand and pondered for a bit. There's no other way. Right now we can only split into two groups. You and I will lead a team of 10 million people to Payuan District Square, and the rest of us will split into another group. How do we get in? Ghost Headblade asked. You and I can disguise ourselves as medical personnel accompanying us. In order to avoid giving the game away, I'll send someone to temporarily take over my identity as Handi tomorrow, President Dylan said. This was a plan within a plan. It sounded very safe and gave people a strong sense of security. Ghost Headblade, remember, your mission is to capture that man called Wang Ming. You must capture him alive. The girl crossed her arms and said in an extremely cold voice, I can only do my best not to kill him. After all, this opponent was just an ordinary person who didn't know any cultivation techniques. Hence, Ghost Headblade didn't care at all. In her eyes, he was nothing more than an ant. At around 10 o'clock in the morning before the remains activity began, all the antibody vaccines had been administered. Everyone sat down in the square and waited for the entrance to the remains to open. In the square formation, Wang Ling stared at head of State 001, who stood motionless next to Wang Ming. He didn't know if it had been an illusion, but it seemed that number 001's eyelids had twitched just now. To be honest, this was Wang Ling's first time seeing this kind of humanoid magic treasure. Although Wang Ming had introduced this new black technology to him before, Wang Ling still felt that it was a little too realistic. Even the twitching of an eyelid could be restored to the extreme. It could only be said that as expected of something developed by Wang Ming. Although it could be said that the overall development of the humanoid magic treasure was the blood and sweat of everyone at Huaxia's Cultivation Academy of Science, it was Wang Ming who had designed the basic plan for the magic treasure. The most valuable thing about any magic treasure was its original design blueprint, just like the original blueprint for the gate between worlds which had fallen into Daoist Guang's hands. Although Daoist Guang had used it to wipe his butt back then, he hadn't been willing to throw it away at all. After washing it clean, it was a brand new drawing. In fact, after Daoist Guang had cleaned up Daoist Guang's mess, the original blueprint of the gate between worlds had probably risen in value. After all, this drawing had once been stained with true immortal shit. Just as Wang Ling's imagination was running wild like this, his eyes suddenly lit up. He suddenly looked up. He sensed a tremor in the air. Although it was extremely subtle, Wang Ling could still feel it. Was the entrance to the remains finally going to open? Wang Ling looked up at the sky and noticed that it had suddenly turned dark. After all, this Devil Valley was Beast King's remains. Given the style of the King of Holy Beasts, it was completely reasonable for a natural phenomenon to occur when the entrance to the remains opened. And he didn't know if it was an illusion. For some reason, Wang Ling felt that the air was suddenly filled with the aroma of a spicy hot pot. Elsewhere, in Songhai City's Shiling Road border village park, the park had been completely closed for the last few days. Because Huaxiu Alliance had already set up the entrance to the fake remains here, all the nearby roads had been sealed off like the real remains. There were only specialist teams, medical teams and guards waiting respectfully at the entrance. The master of Immortal Mansion Chengyu, Evil Sword God and the Old Devil, who had returned his body to Jiangluyue, were sitting in an armed van that had been driven directly from Songhai First Prison to Border Village Park. The fake body had been created by Huaxiu Nation's Academy of Science, and the Old Devil had just replaced it a while ago. Furthermore, the original body had been returned intact to the master of Shadow Stream Jiangluyue. The effect of this fake body definitely wasn't as good as the body of an almighty, but given the current situation, this was already the limit. Of course, the fake body limited the Old Devil's experience to a certain extent, but as an all-powerful Great Devil Emperor back then, there was no doubt about his combat experience. In the van, the Old Devil rubbed his flat chest. To be honest, he still wasn't quite used to these two lumps of flesh. The Old Devil felt a little emotional in his heart, and so did the other people in the van. Sometimes, it was only when you lost something that you truly understood the importance of freedom. Master of Immortal Mansion Chengyu gazed at the scenery outside the window. After being locked up for so long, he realized that even the little spirit sparrows on the street had a unique beauty. Are we really going to go? Evil Sword God sat upright with a nervous expression on his face. We're going to kill people. Isn't that a bad idea? Shifu said that this isn't right. The young man with the long black hair who had been silent on the side was blank at this scene. Has he always been like this? The young man's expression was very cold, and he was wrapped up in a black flexible armor, so that nothing could get through. The most recognizable things about him were two thick boxing gloves with black flame patterns on them. This person was none other than General Bai, the head of Huaxiao Nation's 10 generals, and also known as Explosion Saint. The old devil spread his hands helplessly. Evil Sword God's mental state has been like this ever since he left his sword. General Bai frowned. He had thought that Evil Sword God was faking it, but now it seemed that there was indeed something wrong with his mental state. If this was the case, when it came to a real battle, it was very likely that he would become a burden. General Bai was quick-witted as he searched the internet for a photo of Evil Sword God when he had been arrested. A teenager with eyeshadow who looked a little like a punk. He then held up his phone and compared it with the current Evil Sword God. For some reason, General Bai felt that Evil Sword God seemed to be missing something. A few seconds later, General Bai finally realized what was wrong and immediately reached out to touch Evil Sword God's eyes. He used cold fire to roast a pair of eyeshadow for Evil Sword God. Then General Bai took out a mirror. Chun Nanxian, look at yourself. The moment he saw the mirror, Evil Sword God instantly stood up. Why am I so handsome? Why am I so handsome? Why am I so handsome? So handsome. Handsome. Ah, the old devil and master of Immortal Mansion Chengyu. General Bai, does this count as coming back? The old devil. I think so, but I might not have recovered from my illness. Chapter 713. It turned out that the magic sword wasn't the most important factor. Sure enough, the eyeshadow was the main thing. Looking at Evil Sword God, who had suddenly returned to normal, but clearly hadn't fully recovered, the old devil fell into deep thought. It was very clear that Evil Sword God had two personalities, which would only be activated under certain circumstances. At the same time, General Bai couldn't help pondering this discovery. Here was the problem. When Sword Immortal Fan Rui had died at Evil Sword God's hands back then, which personality had he died under? This was a very important question, because it would become an important indicator for Evil Sword God's official sentence in the future. In addition, General Bai was suddenly very curious about another problem. If Evil Sword God was only given eyeshadow in one eye and not the other, what would happen? Elsewhere, the wind and clouds stirred in the sky above Peiyuan District's square. This moment gave Wang Ling a very familiar feeling, which was very similar to the one he had felt when the gate between worlds had descended 6 years ago. Everyone get ready. The black-faced teacher from Tianshi Imperial High School stood at the very front. Then, a light suddenly appeared in his hand like a lotus blossoming. A 7-colored cube slowly flew into the air along with the light. It's finally here. At that moment, Old Antique looked up at the sky. Teacher, what is this? Someone asked. The Rainbow Glass Box. This is one of Huaxiao Alliance's collection of magic treasures. Wu Zhenjuan, the chief leader of the teachers this time, is in charge of leading the team. Old Antique gazed at the black-faced teacher in front of him. It wasn't until then that everyone learned his name. Teacher Wu is amazing. But where have I heard the surname Teacher Wu before? Wu Zhenjuan is the son of the famous music master, Irascible Dharmaraja Wu Yifan. Dharmaraja creation? No, it's Irascible Dharmaraja as in irascible. Speaking of the origin of this Taoist name, we have to start with the dispute between Taoist Wu Yifan and the evil tiger-pouncing straight men cultivators association back then. Hearing this, a lot of people knew that Old Antique was going to start gossiping again. They were going to start gossiping again. Back then, Taoist Wu and the evil tiger-pouncing straight men cultivators association exposed each other's dirty laundry. In the end, the tiger-pouncing on food straight men cultivators association found a recording of Taoist Wu singing while bathing. It is said that after listening to it, it will arouse a kind of irritable mood, making people unable to help but smash a big and round bowl, and conveniently want to paste the batter in the bowl on your face. Everyone. He didn't know if it was an illusion, but after Old Antique said this, Wu Xinjuan's face in the sky seemed to darken even more. Activating the rainbow glass box consumes a huge amount of spirit power, but Wu Xinjuan's face isn't red and he's not out of breath. Truly amazing. As he introduced the lead teacher, Old Antique couldn't help sighing on the side. Huaxiao Alliance made the right decision to appoint Teacher Wu as team leader this time. Ha ha ha. How big is the difference between Teacher Wang and Teacher Wu? Someone could not help but laugh. Under normal circumstances, when most teachers were asked this question, their faces would definitely darken. But the problem was that Old Antique wasn't afraid at all. No matter where you were, having a thick skin was always the most important thing. Looking at Wu Xinjuan, Old Antique couldn't help laughing. Of course I can't compare to Wu Xinjuan. Teacher Wu is amazing. Someone else stirred up trouble. How many pieces of chalk would it take to kill him? Old Antique pretended to be thinking about it, and then replied with a serious expression, 10. Dopigua. Haha, Old Antique really likes to joke. To be honest, apart from their physiques, I feel that if they really fought, Wu Xinjuan would be in the lead. Super Chin. Don't look down on the fatty, maybe it's true? Wang Ling. A few minutes later, the rainbow glass box officially came into play. Floating in the sky, it sent down a beam of light which enveloped all the students, the lead teacher, the research team and the medical staff in the square. In the blink of an eye, the dense crowd of people in the square instantly disappeared. Then a crack appeared in the sky. In the cockpit of the rainbow glass box, Wu Xinjuan swiftly operated the box to escape into the crack. Is this the entrance to the secret land of Devil Valley? President Han Di asked next to Audiobook. Staring at the sky, Audiobook exhaled softly. Sir, can I trouble you to stop pretending to be President Han Di? The fake President Han Di's eyes instantly turned cold. After a long silence, the fake President Han Di finally tore off the skin imitation mask on his face. Below the mask was an extremely old face that was full of wrinkles. Ranked 8th in the Dark Network, currently a key S-class wanted target in Huaxiao Nation. Thousand Faces Old Man, Audiobook directly gave the fake President Han Di's family background and personal information, then stared at Myriad Faces Old Man and said solemnly, because of your powerful disguise technique, I haven't been able to track you down. I never thought that you would actually deliver yourself to our doorstep for this operation. Myriad Faces Old Man's strength lay in his disguise technique, which could deceive even the most sophisticated disguise identification equipment. Although he wasn't strong in battle, he was a very troublesome enemy. Myriad Faces Old Man frowned. May I ask, when did Director Zhou find out? We found out from the very beginning. As for the real President Han Di hiding among the medical staff, oh no, to be precise, it should be Night Chief Second President Dylan, who is using President Han Di's identity. We deliberately let him in. Audiobook replied. Actually, Audiobook himself hadn't noticed at the beginning, but Wang Ling was in the square. Who could hide from Shifu's eyes? Myriad Faces Old Man. It seems that Director Zhu's reputation for being in this position isn't undeserved. Catch him. At that moment, the special service personnel whom Audiobook had arranged to be in the vicinity of the square removed their invisibility talismans and swarmed forward. Each of the 6 special service personnel was a nascent soul expert. These were all elites who had been directly dispatched from Huaxiao Alliance HQ to ensure that Myriad Faces Old Man could be captured. Staring at Myriad Faces Old Man, they formed hand seals and jointly cast a suppressive spell on him. But Myriad Faces Old Man was completely unafraid. He gazed at Audiobook and chuckled. He fixed his eyes on Audiobook and chuckled, and actually threw out a dazzling light bomb directly from his pocket. The light lasted for a very short time, and Myriad Faces Old Man didn't have time to escape at all. Thus, in that moment, he immediately decided to transform himself into Audiobook. Instantly transform? Audiobook was a little surprised. This kind of disguise was a little beyond his imagination. This already wasn't the hand speed of someone who had been single for 18 years. There were 2 identical Director Zhu's. Which one should he catch? In that instant, the 6 special service personnel were stupefied. There's no other way. In that instant, Audiobook had an idea. There was no way Myriad Faces Old Man would have the long johns he was wearing. And so, in front of everyone, Ajwa unbuckled his belt and looked like he was about to take off his pants. But before he could do so, on the other side, Myriad Face's old man, who was pretending to be Ajwa, was already suppressed by a strong halo of light. Myriad Face's old man was alarmed. How did you know? He had actually been seen through in an instant. One of the special service personnel sneered. Because you're not as perverted as Director Joie. Chapter 7:14. Thus, under the strange gazes of the special service personnel around him, Ajwa put on his belt again, his face flushed red. Fine. In any case, there had been endless controversy about him in the outside world ever since he had taken over, so a few more misunderstandings actually didn't matter. Besides, as a man, what was wrong with being a little perverted? If you wanted to survive in this world, being thick-skinned was always the #1 rule of survival. Do you have anything else to say? Ajwa looked at Myriad Face's old man who had been captured. Myriad Face's old man actually wasn't very strong, but he had been able to escape the law time and time again because of his freakish transfiguration skill. Just now, Ajwa had completely widened his horizons. To be able to change his appearance in an instant wasn't something an ordinary person could possess. 6 nascent Soul Special Service personnel took action to suppress him. Myriad Face's old man himself never expected that he would actually fall here this time. He stared at Ajwa and snorted coldly. I'm not the only expert the Dark Network has mobilized this time. You'd better be careful. Ajwa was startled. It turned out that Myriad Face's old man wasn't the only one who had come to deliver himself. But from the intelligence they had gathered earlier, it was indeed possible that they had missed information on Dark Network members. Should we arrange for an interrogation? One of the special service personnel asked. Ajwa nodded. Bring him back for interrogation at once. You can contact Warden Liang for the rest. If there's anything new, he'll contact me directly. Yes, Director Joie. The special service personnel stood solemnly and saluted Ajwa. Then they detained Myriad Face's old man and walked him to the patrol car on the side of the road. Ajwa felt that Myriad Face's old man probably wouldn't give up so easily. Not only were these Dark Network members unregistered rogue cultivators, most of them had criminal records and wouldn't confess so easily. Ajwa knew that in recent years, the state had been investing a huge amount of money in a plan to crack down on the Dark Network, but it was often only when the plan was actually put into action that it was fraught with difficulties. The unregistered rogue cultivators of the Dark Network weren't quite the same as the Dark Forces. At the very least, the Dark Forces were organized, but the rogue cultivators of the Dark Network were all self-employed. They might be employed by the same force, but there was no interaction between them. This was also one of the main reasons why the Dark Net had always been so difficult to break into. Previously, when he had found out that Night Chief Second President Dylan had disguised himself as President Han Di of the vaccine company, Secretary Dakong had already asked him to be on guard against this matter, and the lead on Myriad Face's elder had been dug up by following the vine to the melon. But he hadn't expected that apart from Myriad Face's old man, there would actually be someone other than President Dylan mixed in with the medical team. This was an unknown variable. Ajwa felt that it was very necessary for him to inform the people inside. After entering Beast King's remains, the internal and external signals were completely cut off due to crossing space. Ajwa had no way of contacting them at all. There's no other way. Ajwa sighed. Now that things had come to this, there was only one way left. Even if he went in himself, regardless of whether Myriad Face's old man would hand over the truth in the end, or who was the person who had infiltrated the medical team. As a scapegoat, if something really happened inside, at the very least he had to stay by his master's side, and be prepared to be a scapegoat at any time. Ajwa didn't think that he and Wang Ling were like Junjun and Tao Tao. He was a competent disciple. At the same time, in Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's luxurious villa in Wonxian Garden, Little Silver and Wuji were anxiously waiting for news. When Beast King's remains had opened earlier, they had almost instantly sensed the fluctuations between heaven and earth. The blood of a holy beast flowed in Little Silver's veins, and Wuji's materials were made from the skin of a holy beast. When Beast King's remains had opened, the two of them had clearly sensed the faint phenomenon of heaven and earth. As the last holy beast on earth, Little Silver felt that he should explore Beast King's remains. But he definitely couldn't directly reveal himself in front of everyone. There were a lot of experts in the team this time, and once his true holy beast form was seen through, it would be very difficult to explain what would happen next. Thus, putting all this together, Little Silver took the initiative to contact Little Master Audjoa a day before Beast King's remains opened. According to the original plan, Audjoa could go with the team, but now that Little Silver was included, he had to think of a way to set up another team. A few minutes later, Grenade-Throwing Senior Immortal received a message from Audjoa. Inside, Grenade-Throwing Senior Immortal, who was maintaining the Cultivation Forum, said, "Brother Silver, you can set off now. Brother Joa will be waiting for you in the northern square of Peiyuan District." Alright. Little Silver got up excitedly. Just as he was about to leave with Wuji, he suddenly asked, "Grenade-Throwing, are you really not going? Brother Tu is still treating that girl in gray. He sent me a message earlier saying that he needs me to buy some medicine and send it to the island. Jinshur and Inshur are helping with alchemy, so Brother Tu is a little understaffed." Grenade-Throwing Senior Immortal sighed. He really wanted to go, but unfortunately, someone had to stay behind to help. Before entering Beast King's remains this time, Immortal Toya had originally been appointed as the captain of the medical team. But in order to wake up that girl in gray, Immortal Toya could only decline the job. The main reason was that everyone was very curious about that girl in gray in the Koan's belly. Furthermore, this was the only lead they had at the moment that was the mysterious angler. Thus, Audjoa didn't have to wait long in Peiyuan District Square. A tiny space fissure formed in the middle of the square, which then gradually blossomed like a lotus flower. A silver-haired, fair-faced young man and a long-haired girl covered in bandages stepped out of the fissure. Spatial teleportation. This was Limitless Sword God's own ability. At that moment, it had only been 5 or 6 minutes since the rainbow glass box had escaped into the space vortex at the entrance to Beast King's remains secret land. Not long after Audjoa's call, Wuji used her ability to bring Little Silver over. No one else saw this scene. Because the entrance to Beast King's remains was classified by the state, all nearby surveillance cameras were closed off. Coupled with the fact that traffic had already been restricted on the surrounding roads, no one else saw Little Silver and Wuji appear. "Little Master." As soon as Little Silver landed, he immediately greeted Audjoa from a distance, and then skipped over. "Is everyone here?" Audjoa looked at his watch. "There's one more person, he'll be here soon." Apart from the three of them, there was one more person in the special operations team that Audjoa had set up this time. Fatty Luo. Fatty Luo had always been obsessed with the extinct 1,000 dried bone in Beast King's remains. This time, it was the perfect opportunity to collect the 1,000 dried bone. Of course, this collection was in compliance with the rules. Before Beast King's remains opened, Audjoa had already reported it to Secretary Dakong. This 1,000 dried bone would be his year-end reward this year. Audjoa didn't care about the year-end reward at all. Money was a worldly possession. Chapter 715. About 5 minutes later, Fatty Luo finally arrived at the scene. Unlike the others, he had come on an electric scooter. He gave his electric scooter a nice name, Rolling Wheels. Of course, he had also meticulously modified this scooter. It looked like an ordinary scooter, but in fact it wasn't as simple as it looked. As they approached the edge of the square, Fatty Luo abruptly lifted the front wheels. Whirlwind Charge Tornado. The jet at the back of Rolling Wheels instantly activated, and 2 shockwaves burst out like destructive death rays, completing a great void leap. Audjoa. Little Silver. Wuji. My apologies. I've kept you waiting. Fatty Luo directly flew up to them and scratched the back of his head apologetically. Fatty Luo's attire today was still as flirtatious as ever. The white undershirt and baggy underpants were very eye-catching. Teacher Luo's attire is still the same, hahaha. Audjoa laughed. But Fatty Luo shook his head. No, I've actually changed. The white undershirt and baggy underpants I'm wearing aren't ordinary at all. Because we're going to enter the remains this time, I made special preparations. So this white undershirt and baggy underpants are specially made. Serial number 190,331. What does the serial number mean? This is my 190,331 white undershirt and baggy underpants. Fatty Luo smiled. I had to do my homework in advance. So for this 190331 set, I specially added anti-poison and anti-fire insect bites. Whether it's the undershirt or the underpants, it can instantly absorb poisonous substances that come into contact with the body, neutralize the toxins, and produce an insecticide to prevent poisonous insects from attacking. The most important thing is that if you soak the entire undershirt in water, Lord Jinka's face will be printed on the front. Fatty Luo confidently explained its uses. Although there weren't any large creatures in Beast King's remains, there were definitely plants and insects. Ajwa gave him a thumbs up. Teacher Luo is really amazing. It was just that his aesthetics were a little. So do you want to wear them? I've prepared them for you. Ajwa, Little Silver and Wuji said almost in unison. Thank you for your kindness, Teacher Luo. No need. Fatty Luo had a regretful expression on his face. Tell me, why can't the magic treasures I invented sell, when they clearly have so many functions? Ah, that's right, can I take this rolling wheels inside? Can I? By the way, can I take it inside? Of course I can, but what is the purpose of Teacher Luo? Earlier, I've inputted all the information about the extinct resources in the ruins into rolling wheels. This rolling wheels looks like an electric scooter, but it's actually a toolbox and an AI collector. After saying that, Fatty Luo pressed a yellow button on the scooter, and a mechanical arm directly stretched out from the back of the scooter. Zhua. Odd. Of course, this was not the scariest thing. The scariest thing was that this mechanical arm was actually humanoid. Also, for some reason, Ajwa felt that it was very familiar. Fatty Luo caressed the mechanical arm with great pride. The hand model of this mechanical arm was made based on Lord Jinka's human form. Doesn't it give off a very special feeling? Ajwa. And it can even make sounds. The voice is also an imitation of Lord Jinka's. Fatty Luo wanted to press the button, but Ajwa immediately stopped him. Teacher Luo, it's getting late. Why don't we show it later when we have time? The important matter is more important. Ajwa felt that things were starting to develop in a strange direction. At this point, Fatty Luo hurriedly nodded, but he could not help but show a disappointed look on his face. Ajwa and Little Silver would never be able to forget this scene. It was a face flushed with honey. Fatty Luo pressed the button with a regretful expression on his face, and withdrew the mechanical arm, his face beaming. Director Zhua and Brother Little Silver, if you have the chance and want to try it out, let me know at any time. It's so comfortable to sleep on the mechanical arm at night. Everyone. As expected, wasn't this the real reason why he brought rolling wheels in? On the other side, the exclusive van of Songhai First Prison's Mahjong squad had already arrived at the entrance to the fake remains. In the van, apart from the old devil, Evil Sword God and the master of Immortal Mansion were excellent swordsmen. Thus, General Bai had already given them magic swords, which were commonly used by the military, and were produced by a military factory. These magic swords only had built-in artificial sword spirits for industrial use, and were of streamlined quality. Of course, the quality of military magic swords was absolutely up to standard, but for a sword Dao expert who was used to using swordplay, this kind of magic sword wasn't good enough. Evil Sword God. Is this kind of lousy sword fit for my venerable self to use? Is this kind of lousy sword fit for my venerable self to use? Is this kind of lousy sword fit for my venerable self to use? Is this kind of lousy sword? Is this kind of lousy sword? Uses sword? The vein in General Bai's forehead twitched slightly. If you say that again, I'll blow up your tongue. Evil Sword God. I'm sorry, my venerable self was wrong. The old devil and the master of Immortal Mansion Chengyu. General Bai cleared his throat and said in a low voice, there may be devil disciples among the people we're dealing with this time. So I hope that the three of you can do your best to make amends for your mistakes. Master of Immortal Mansion Chengyu. Devil disciples? To be more precise, Devil disciples are actually people of the devil world. General Bai said solemnly. Although we can't be 100% sure at the moment, we have already received relevant leads. There may indeed be devil disciples among the dark network members recruited by Night Chief this time. The old devil frowned, as if recalling something. The east connects to the demon world, and the west connects to the devil world. I remember that the entrance to the devil world should have already been destroyed in a great battle between Western cultivators? That's right, the entrance to the devil world was indeed destroyed at that time. In the last few years, monitoring data from various countries shows that the entrance to the devil world has already been reopened. General Bai said. So while it looks like our mission this time is to wipe out these foreign rebels, it's actually to investigate leads on devil disciples. Before we officially get off the bus, I need to explain this clearly to the three of you. Do you have any other questions? If the mission is successfully completed, how can your punishment be reduced? The old devil asked. That depends on your final outcome. The death penalty can be commuted to life imprisonment. Life imprisonment can be commuted to fixed-term imprisonment. Of course, given your crimes, you'll be sentenced to more than 2,000 years, General Bai said. Of course, that doesn't rule out the possibility of a subsequent mission to reduce your sentence. My venerable self understands. The old devil gave an enigmatic smile. Looks like Devil Emperor is very confident. Hee, do your best, the old devil. After all, my venerable self isn't a devil. Chapter 7:16. The Rainbow Glass Box led all the teachers and students in the square, as well as Huaxiu Alliance's official team of experts and medical team members, through the space fissure. When Wang Ling was sucked into the glass box's world, he found that the inside of the box had already been decorated like a dormitory. This rainbow glass box wasn't just a magic artifact for traveling through space, it was also a magic treasure that could be used as a residence. The moment they entered the rainbow glass box, many students suddenly understood why the school notice hadn't required them to bring tents. It turned out that they would be living in this magic treasure for the rest of the day. Because the space was large enough, the inside of the glass box was divided into more than 100 zones, which were only a very small part of the interior of the glass box. Each zone was managed by a teacher who would lead the team, who would take attendance every day and arrange activities and tasks. In addition, in order to take care of each other, all the dormitories this time were double dormitories. Of course, double dormitories were double dormitories, and boys and girls would still be separated. I even brought my own tent. Some students were a little disappointed. Summer camp or whatever, it would be at least half as fun if they didn't live in tents. But in the end, there were still sensible students. Let's listen to the teacher's arrangements. Although there aren't any high-level spirit beasts in the remains, it's still very dangerous. If we live in tents, something might happen if we can't control them. In the end, it was for the sake of the students' safety. At the very least, it was much safer inside the rainbow glass box than outside. Moreover, in this trip, there were some sightseeing activities that were carried out in the rainbow glass box. It was said that the entire rainbow glass box would become transparent, and all the students would be able to see the scenery outside from the box. This reminded Wang Ling of when Father and Mother Wang had taken him to the Wild Spirit Beast Garden as a child. In the Wild Spirit Beast Garden, everyone had to sit in a special bus and couldn't get off at will. They could only go sightseeing in the bus. So in some sense, there wasn't much of a difference between the two of them. While the box was traveling through space, the dormitory assignments had already been completed. The major zones in the box had already been assigned beforehand. There were only so many students under each lead teacher, so the allocation of dormitories was very quick. It was fine as long as the boys and girls were separated reasonably. Wang Ming's zone was in Zone 36. When the dormitories were assigned, Super Chun and Dopigua shared a room, but Wang Ling still hadn't heard Dopigua's name. At that moment, Wang Ling already had a bad feeling. In the end, Wang Ming smiled at him. Finally, classmate Wang Ling and I will share a dorm. Wang Ling. He knew it. But right after Wang Ming said this, Wang Ling noticed a lot of envious gazes directed at him. F***K, Wang Ling is so lucky. By the way, it seems that Wang Ling's luck has always been pretty good. No wonder he's our class mascot. That's right, that's right. It just so happens to be in the same room as teacher. I still have a lot of questions to ask teacher. Wang Ling has struck gold this time. Many people couldn't help but whisper to each other when they heard the final list of dormitory assignments. In a flash, Wang Ling was once again pushed to the crest of a frenzied wave of discussion. Actually, Wang Ling could understand why. After all, the teachers who had been selected by Huaxiu Alliance to participate in this summer camp were definitely the most outstanding group of teachers. There was a saying in the cultivation world that a master's guidance was better than 100 years of hard work. Actually, Wang Ling felt quite aggrieved in his heart, because in terms of cultivation, Wang Ming, this idiot, couldn't be considered a master at all. Fine, the summer camp hadn't even started, and this idiot had already made Wang Ling hate him again. At that moment, Old Antique's voice came over the PA. Students, the space travel is about to end, and we will soon enter the secret land of Devil Valley through the space tunnel. All teachers and students, as well as staff members participating in this operation, please enter the dormitories that have been arranged for you to rest for the time being. In 2 hours, the Rainbow Glass Box will fly to the central safe zone of Beast King's remains. Our first stop will be the base station in the central safe zone. The summer camp this time was only 5 days in total, so it was impossible to completely explore Beast King's remains. Because Beast King's remains didn't open for a fixed period of time and was very short, only less than half of it had been explored by the official expedition team at the moment, and the entire western half of the map was black. This base station in the central safe zone had been temporarily set up the last time they had entered Beast King's remains. It contained samples of many extinct resources and introductions to their functions, and was a little like an exhibition hall. This was the first stop of the summer camp, mainly so that the students could better understand the resources in the remains. The best way to distinguish between poisonous plants was, of course, to rely on themselves. After that, everyone returned to the dormitories that had been arranged for them. Wang Ling walked with Wang Ming, while the head of state, who was pretending to be head of state 001, followed behind Wang Ming in an invisible state. For some reason, Wang Ling felt that there was something wrong with this head of state 001, but he didn't dare be completely sure. After all, this was the first time he had heard of a humanoid magic treasure. He was just surprised that the degree of restoration of this humanoid magic treasure was a little too high. All the dormitories had the same configuration. They were very spacious and had individual bathrooms. Most importantly, they all had floor-to-ceiling windows, so everyone could see what the rainbow glass box was doing as it flew. When they reached the dormitory door, Wang Ming ordered head of state 001. Alert mode. Then head of state 001 very obediently stood at the door of the dormitory. You're not letting him in? Wang Ling raised his eyebrows and asked. This is our dormitory, why would we let a humanoid machine in? Also, let me tell you, both of head of state 001's eyes are recording devices. Even if we take off our underwear inside, it will record us. Wang Ming sighed. Wang Ling. After saying that, Wang Ming cupped his chin in thought. He felt that it was a little strange to leave head of state 001 at the door like this. Thus he ordered again, patrol alert mode. Hearing the order, head of state 001 started to move. Wang Ming set head of state 001's patrol range to be the area where the staff lived. Seeing head of state 001 leave on foot, Wang Ming turned to Wang Ling and said, You should have noticed, right? Someone has snuck in on our trip this time, and is among the medical staff. I'll send head of state 001 over to see if they make any movements. What if they fight? Wang Ling was curious. No, head of state 001's original design concept wasn't for fighting, Wang Ming answered quickly. Wang Ling. Wang Ming. Although head of state 001 is indeed equipped with weapons, these weapons are for protection and defense. According to our country's philosophy, peace is, of course, the main theme that will never change. Wang Ling. Wang Ming. So the slogan that was originally designed for head of state 001 was, Use the meatiest clothes to take the most vicious beating. Chapter 717. In the conference room on the top floor of the Huaxiao Alliance building, President Qi watched the remote broadcast from a distance. Because of the spatial fault, ordinary communication devices were no longer able to reach inside the secret land. So the Huaxiao Alliance conference room, which was under President Qi's command this time, used a spatial sound-transmitting magic treasure to capture the spatial ripples in the secret land, and use a repeater to transmit voice and images back. Watching Wang Ming continuously issue commands to the head of state who was pretending to be head of state 001 in the video, General Yi broke out in a cold sweat on the side. Old Qi, isn't this a little bad? What's bad about it? His Excellency the head of state approved it himself. President Qi smiled. Actually, the head of state had always been a very playful person. His Excellency the head of state has a command relay device on him. Even if this kid Wang Ming sends out a remote command, His Excellency the head of state will know right away. President Qi stared at the image with a meaningful smile on his face. This kid Wang Ming has always thought that he's very smart. Who would have thought that he would fall into our trap this time? Actually, it looks pretty interesting. I wonder what this kid's expression will be when he finds out that he's facing a real head of state? General Yi. Elsewhere, Wang Ling and Wang Ming were resting in their dormitory. Wang Ling was leaning back on the bed with one arm under his head, while Wang Ming was fiddling with his bottles and jars. This was a person who couldn't sit still at all. Aren't you sleepy? Wang Ling asked telepathically as he stared at Wang Ming's back. Why would I be sleepy? Wang Ming replied, but his hands didn't stop moving. Before we set off this time, I took a soul-replenishing pill. After taking one, an ordinary person can stay awake for a long time like a cultivator. With my physique, I can probably last about 7 days or so. This thing is selling very well now, and those white-collar thieves like it very much. They've also given this pill a very nice name, Mommy Sudden Death Pill. Wang Ling. Wang Ming. Mommy doesn't have to worry about my sudden death pill anymore. Wang Ling. Half an hour later, Wang Ming finally clapped his hands and assumed a pose indicating that he had succeeded. He had been fiddling with a lot of bottles and jars on the table for a long time, but in the end, he realized that what Wang Ming had made was a very small crystal chip. It was transparent and very translucent, and was only the size of half a fingernail. Wang Ling didn't know what this chip was for. Then he saw Wang Ming take out a heavenly materials sword from a charged storage ring, press a button on the hilt, and pop out a slot. Wang Ming picked up the chip with a pair of tweezers, placed it smoothly in the card slot, and then pushed it back in. It's done. It's an upgraded version of the black technology, heavenly materials sword. Wang Ming held the sword with one hand effortlessly. Under his modification, the material of the sword had become even lighter. Even an ordinary person would feel as light as a feather when holding the sword. However, the key point was that the power of the sword itself had not weakened at all. Instead, it had been greatly strengthened. I've been working on this chip for a long time, and I'm almost done. Now my heavenly materials sword can be considered complete, Wang Ming said proudly. What's it for? Wang Ling asked curiously. This chip is a voice-activated receiver. It has a very wide range, and it only works on my voice. I'll give you a demonstration. At that moment, Wang Ming directly put the heavenly materials sword 10 meters away from him, then spread his arms. Sword come! Wang Ling saw the heavenly materials sword on the ground suddenly tremble slightly, and it actually turned into an aurora of light as it swiftly and accurately returned to Wang Ming's palm. Wang Ling. Sword in hand, the expression on Wang Ming's face was relaxed and leisurely. Logically speaking, a normal scientist would be extremely nervous when they invented something, because basically all inventions were perfected bit by bit after countless failures. This was where Wang Ming's abnormality lay. As long as it was something that had passed through his hands, there was no such thing as going back to the furnace and remaking it. He basically succeeded on the first try. Wang Ming took out a handkerchief and carefully wiped the blade of the sword. Uncle called me earlier and asked me to take good care of you during this activity. Wang Ling. Wang Ming. You attracted too much attention with the incident with President Bai. There are so many people at this activity. Didn't you notice that a lot of students and teachers were staring at you when you were lining up in the square? Wang Ling nodded. Because it was true, when he had been in the square earlier, he had vaguely heard a lot of voices, and most of them were from students from other schools. Most of them knew that a grade 1 student from number 60 high had almost been killed by the Demon Hunters Association. Fortunately, Audiobook had suppressed public opinion in the media, and Wang Ling's photo couldn't be found in any news media. Thus, the students and teachers in the square who were curious about Wang Ling actually didn't know which student he was. Otherwise, Wang Ling felt that it would be very lively in the square this time. So you have to listen to me during this activity. If you can avoid doing anything, try not to, got it? Wang Ming stared at Wang Ling with a straight face. You know, there's a lot of hype about your autograph right now. It's a good thing Audiobook suppressed the photo incident, otherwise there would definitely have been a bunch of people looking for you in the square just now and asking for your autograph. Wang Ling was stunned. Actually, Wang Ling was far from expecting the impact of this incident to actually be this big. It's mainly because of some superstitious parents. They think that you've escaped death and are full of immortal chi. Furthermore, it's rumored online that you're number 60 high's mascot. Coupled with the fact that it's time for the college entrance exam, a lot of people want to freeload off your immortal chi. Speaking up to this point, Wang Ming took out his phone and showed Wang Ling a photo, then sighed deeply. This was taken by Old Lee at the school gate after number 60 high's bus arrived at Peiyuan district this morning. Wang Ling stared at the photo and noticed that there was actually an incense burner at the school gate. Wang Ming put his phone back. This incense burner has already been removed, but you still have to be careful. Got it? Parents nowadays were really crazier than the last. But some people just want an autograph. That's already very civilized. I heard that there are also some perverts who plan to put your photo in a silk pouch and carry it around with them. Suddenly, Wang Ming grabbed Wang Ling's shoulder. Little brother. Don't worry, big brother has the upgraded heavenly materials sword this time as well as the right to command head of state 001. I can definitely protect you perfectly. You won't be harassed by perverts. As soon as he said this, a silk pouch fell to the ground. Chapter 7:18. As Wang Ming had said, considering the incident with President Bai of the Demon Hunters Association, Wang Ming indeed had to be more careful in his future actions, especially in the last few days. While the incident seemed to have passed, the ripples caused by it had in fact only just begun. About half an hour after the announcement that everyone would be taking a break, the dormitories once again received news that lunch was ready in the canteen of Area 66 in the Central District, and those who needed it could eat it. Wang Ling looked at the time. It was already noon, which was around the same time as number 60 high's usual opening hours. Although the rainbow glass box was a spatial magic treasure, its interior was like that of a mobile immortal warship outside. The dormitories, canteen, and training rooms inside were all equipped according to military standards. There was no way to avoid eating. This summer camp actually wasn't as relaxing as imagined, so in order to ensure that every student was full of energy, it was necessary to replenish their stamina, and everyone had to eat. The canteen in Area 66 had a special check-in area, and no one could escape it. Like the dormitories, the check-in area was directly based on one's face. Entering the dormitories depended on one's face, and checking in at the canteen depended on one's face. Of course, apart from the students, the rest of the staff didn't have this strict rule. Do you want to change your appearance before going to the canteen? I can directly refresh your facial information in the system. Wang Ming turned his head to ask Wang Ling before they left. Wang Ling shook his head. In any case, no one outside the school had seen his photo. Besides, even if he used the Great Transfiguration spell, he was still wearing number 60 high school uniform. Old Antique's eyesight was especially good, and he knew the names of all the number 60 high students this time. If he suddenly saw an unfamiliar student, he would definitely get into trouble again. So there was actually no need to change his appearance at all. As the two brothers walked out the door toward the canteen, Wang Ling heard Wang Ming mention a familiar name on the way. I heard that the nutrition consultant for Area 66 this time is number 60 high's Mother Wan. Wang Ling was startled. Mother Wan is here? He hadn't seen any sign of Mother Wan in the square earlier. Wang Ming, She's just a nutrition consultant. She just needs to give some advice from a distance. There's no need to come in person. Wang Ling. The lunch this time was very luxurious. The main dish was braised dahuandan, and the side dish was steamed marrow cleansing pill. Moreover, this marrow cleansing pill was steamed with fish juice stock, which had a very strong fish flavor. The cafeteria was very spacious. Because it hadn't been long since the announcement had been made, there weren't many people when they arrived. The two brothers each took their lunchboxes and sat down in a remote corner, mainly to avoid trouble. Not long after Wang Ling sat down, he noticed that the black-faced Wu Jinjuan from before had also arrived. Wang Ming looked at him and couldn't help laughing. Don't you think this Wu Jinjuan looks a lot like you? But he's really black-faced, while you're just inwardly flirty. Wang Ling. Not long after the two brothers sat down, the number of people in the cafeteria suddenly increased. There were many students from other schools wearing all kinds of uniforms. The summer camp organized by Songhai City this time was for senior grade 1 freshmen. The general administration of 100 schools had previously announced that all the schools going would be decided by drawing lots. There were so many high schools in Songhai City, and in terms of qualifications, number 60 high, a key city high school candidate, had no chance at all. After drawing lots like this, all the other high schools naturally had no choice but to gladly accept it. The truth was that all the other high schools had drawn lots, but number 60 high had been personally selected by Secretary Dakong. Of the 6 big high schools in Peiyuan District, number 60 high was the only one participating in the summer camp this time. Of course, this wasn't something that could be told to others. Otherwise, the high school principals would definitely start fighting. So this time, Wang Ling saw a lot of students from other districts. For example, Remnant High's full name was Remnant Senior High School. This was a key city high school in the Hualing district, and the average cultivation of its students was at the middle stage of the foundation establishment stage. Number 60 High was left far behind in this regard alone. The most important thing was that Remnant High had a very high rate of golden core cultivators, with 6% of students breaking through the golden core stage before officially entering university. This number could already be said to be very exaggerated. To put it in layman's terms, there were 6 Ajuas in every 100 people. After all, Ajua was a rare cultivation genius at number 60 high in 100 years. The reason why he had been able to get into number 60 high back then was purely because he had made a serious mistake in his written test scores for the senior high school entrance examination. Otherwise, he would definitely have directly entered a key city high school. While Wang Ling was still pondering this, he saw a person in the uniform of Remnant High stroll unhurriedly toward their corner. Remnant High's uniform wasn't quite the same as that of a regular high school. It was a little like a combination of Chinese and Western styles. He wore a white shirt on the top and black stretch trousers on the bottom. Over the white shirt was a small robe that resembled a shawl, which looked very Western. This person had a pair of bright blue eyes and an air of nobility about him. At first glance, Wang Ling deduced that this person was probably of mixed blood. Wang Ling had thought that this person was looking for a seat, but he hadn't expected him to directly come up to them with a lunchbox. "Excuse me, may I sit here?" Wang Ming was about to refuse, but this person beat him to it and smiled at the two brothers. "Thank you." Then he directly put down the lunchbox and sat down next to Wang Ming. Wang Ming was stunned. This guy didn't play by the rules at all. He could just directly thank him and then sit down. The corners of Wang Ming's mouth twitched. Remembering that he was now a teacher and that he needed to maintain his poise, he swallowed his displeasure and exhaled. Wang Ling stared at this scene. For some reason, he felt that the canteen was filled with a very strange charaba. He took a look and sure enough, he saw Jai Yin coming over with a lunchbox not far away. Furthermore, he had directly chosen to sit down at the table behind Wang Ming, which naturally created a considerable sense of low pressure. To be honest, the food in the canteen at the summer camp wasn't bad, but Wang Ling had no appetite at all. The summer camp this time was a cultivation and study trip, and it was very clearly written on the list that snacks weren't allowed. Back in the square, the snacks that had been confiscated were enough to open a snack shop. Thus, Wang Ling hadn't had any crispy noodle snacks for the past few days, which had really been a little lonely and unbearable for him. Thus, he basically hadn't touched the lunchbox on the table. On the other hand, the mixed-blood young man sitting next to Wang Ming seemed to have a great appetite as he stared at Wang Ling's lunchbox for a long time. Then the young man suddenly asked, "Excuse me, classmate, if you don't want to eat this braised dahuan pill, can you give it to me?" Before Wang Ling could reply, he heard the young man say again, "Thank you." Then, with a stab of his chopsticks, he directly took the dahuan pill away. Wang Ling blushed with shame in his heart. He was 100% sure that he had run into another weirdo. Chapter 719. Wasting food was indeed very bad behavior, but the problem was that this student was a little too familiar with them. Wang Ling watched as the other party directly swallowed his braised dahuan pill. The latter made a soft sound, then took out a silver handkerchief from his pocket, and gently wiped his lips with the elegance of a noblewoman in the capital. It looked like he was completely full. After a long while, he straightened his back and stared straight at Wang Ling. It's bad behavior to waste food. This student doesn't seem to have an appetite, but it's probably not because the food here isn't to your liking. You must be deep in thought, right? And I can see that you must be distressed by what happened recently. To Wang Ming and Wang Ling's surprise, his words were actually pretty accurate. I won't owe you this braised dahuan pill. I, Li Mingyao, have never liked owing other people anything. The very elegant-looking young man started to reveal his background, then looked at Wang Ling. Tell me, what level of skill book do you want? I have level 1 to 3 here. Wang Ling and Wang Ming. It's fine if you can't think of anything for the time being. Have you heard of a spell app called the 4 Cool Encyclopedia? You can download it, and you can choose any of the level 1 to 3 skills. I can help you get them, Li Mingyao said. Whether it was Wang Ling or Wang Ming, neither of them had any interest in a mere low-level skill book at all. After all, a casual yawn from Wang Ling might be more lethal than these low-level skill books. But a person who could casually exchange a skill book for a favor definitely didn't have a simple background. Wang Ming mulled over this person's name carefully. Li Mingyao. He somehow felt that this person's name was a little familiar. It was a pity that he wasn't in the lab right now. Otherwise, Wang Ming could directly use the official database to specifically pull up this person's information. You don't have to doubt my identity. I'm not a bad person. However, Li Mingyao seemed to enjoy this kind of doubtful gaze. I often use skill scrolls to exchange, so for me personally, it's just a basic operation. The two of you probably don't know, but this braised grand revitalizing pill is a limited main dish available in the canteen this time. Therefore, this humble one thinks that using a rank 1 to 3 skill scroll is a favor, and getting to know the two of you should be a good deal. Wang Ming's head abruptly shook at this heavily commercial tone. Suddenly, he stared at Li Mingyao. Are you from the Li family? Looks like this teacher is quite knowledgeable. Li Mingyao smiled. Among the 4 big families in Songhai City, my Li family has opened a chain of online skills stores all over the country, and everyone already knows about it. However, very few people know that I am the young master of the Li clan. Wang Ling didn't care much about the 4 big families of Songhai, but Wang Ming was well aware of them. Among the 4 great aristocratic families of Songhai, Li Mingyao's Li family made their fortune by purchasing the copyrights of various original spells and selling them online. In addition to the Li family, which used skills as a means of commerce, the remaining 3 big families were the Zhou family, whose main business was refining artifacts, the Lin family, whose main business was spirit beasts, and the Sun family, whose main business was selling elixirs. Currently, the representative of the Sun family's younger generation was Lotus Sunday. These were the 4 major projects that currently occupied an absolute share of the cultivator consumer market. Ever since they had been commercialized, their income had snowballed continuously. In Songhai City, the 4 big families now divided up the market based on these 4 major projects and stood on equal footing. Anyone familiar with this circle would know how powerful the 4 big families were. Especially back then, before the nation's capital had moved from Songhai City to Jinghua. The 4 big families had been existences that could shake Songhai City, but that had already been hundreds of years ago, and Wang Ling hadn't even been born yet. What a big family was particular about was its history. So although a lot of time had passed, and the influence of the four big families in Songhai City was no longer as great as it had been back then, the four big families had relied on the core elements they controlled to each occupy a portion of the market. This alone made people feel like they were far behind. Wang Ling carefully sized up this elegant young man, Li Mingyao, in front of him. It turned out that he had run into a super-rich second generation like Lotus Sun today. I didn't expect you to be young Master Li of the Li family. My apologies. Wang Ming had a cheeky expression on his face, but there wasn't the slightest ripple in his heart. This was something that Li Mingyao had never expected. In fact, using his family's resources to expand his network and exchange resources was a very smart way. It would be very difficult for ordinary people to resist this sugar-coated bullet, but it didn't work at all in front of Wang Ling and Wang Ming, these two brothers. Grade 3 skills in Wang Ling's opinion, they weren't as useful as crispy noodle snacks. Because he had been influenced by his family's resources since he was young, Li Mingyao had come into contact with all kinds of people, so he was especially good at reading people's words and body language. To be honest, even Li Mingyao himself hadn't expected to be treated so coldly today. Logically speaking, number 60 High was just a key city high school candidate, and the overall quality of the students there was a long way off from that of Remnant High. How could the students and teachers there not be the slightest ripple in the face of his temptation? Li Mingyao didn't quite understand this. In fact, eating that Dahuan pill just now hadn't been his original intention. His original intention had just been to eat the other party's pill, then find an excuse to use a skill to do him a favor, and then ask him about something he was interested in. But he hadn't expected this plan to actually fail. A mere foundation establishment student. Surely he couldn't trade a grade 4 skill for it, could he? Although it wasn't impossible, Li Mingyao admitted that he couldn't learn a grade 4 skill. To learn a grade 4 skill, he had to reach the late golden core stage at the very least. Furthermore, the market price of a grade 4 skill book was 200,000 immortal gold bars. And this was just the average market price of a grade 4 skill book. If he encountered a rare grade 4 skill book, it was very likely that the price would be several times higher. This definitely wasn't a price that an ordinary family could afford, so what should he do now? At that moment, the situation was awkward, and Li Mingyao didn't know where to start. Wang Ming, on the other hand, somewhat understood this young master's thoughts. Looking at Li Mingyao's conflicted expression, he asked with a smile, "If you have any questions, you might as well ask them directly. There's no need to beat around the bush." Li Mingyao was blank. Wang Ming had directly seen through his thoughts, but he still did his best to maintain an elegant smile on his face. "Then I'll ask. Tell me first," Wang Ming said. Li Mingyao looked at Wang Ling. "I see that this student is wearing the number 60 high uniform. Then do you know student Wang Ling?" "Wang Ling. Wang Ming. Li Mingyao. I'm his fan." Chapter 720. Wang Ling was startled. He understood this principle, but why had he actually gained fans after that incident? The point was that in the incident with President Bai, his image had been that of a down-and-out student who had narrowly escaped death. But when Li Mingyao brought it up, it was Wang Ming who was a little curious. "May I ask, why are you a fan of Wang Ling?" The latter straightened his collar and maintained his elegant demeanor. "I wonder if you've ever heard of luck?" Luck, in other words, could also be called immortal fate. Although there wasn't any scientific evidence to prove that this thing existed, it had to be admitted that this thing really existed. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a great fortune spell among the 3,000 great spells. Simply put, fortune was like a cultivator's hidden attribute, which couldn't be specifically measured. It was slowly accumulated through a cultivator's daily cultivation and dedication to doing good. But as far as Wang Ling knew, everyone was born with a corresponding base amount of fortune. Most people's fortune was 0, and only a small number of people were born with very good fortune. Of course, there was also a small number of people who were born with negative fortune. This was also the reason why even if some people continuously did good deeds and accumulated merit, their lives would still be very unlucky. It was very likely that they had committed too many sins in their previous lives and hadn't paid off their debts. Of course, for some people with good fortune, that didn't mean they could do whatever they wanted. No matter how good their fortune was, it would eventually be used up. Thus, for cultivators above the Golden Core stage in Huaxiao Nation, the Huaxiao Alliance branches in each city actually had a task similar to the Slay Demons and Defend the Tao announcement. By taking on this task, they could improve their cultivation, and at the same time accumulate immortal destiny. There was no reward for this work, and it was a public service for cultivators. But in order to encourage more cultivators to take part in this work, the state had invested in a lot of subsidies over the years. These subsidies came in a variety of forms, such as elixirs, magic artifacts, skill scrolls, or immortal gold of equal value. So when they heard Li Mingyao say fortune, Wang Ming and Wang Ling could more or less understand what he was talking about. That President Bai of the Demon Hunters Association is very strong. Judging from the previous news reports, he should be an itinerant immortal or a true immortal, right? Speaking up to this point, Li Mingyao scared. But classmate Wang Ling, in a situation where it was almost impossible for him to escape, he managed to shake off this person's evil clutches and escape with his life. Classmate Wang Ling's luck is simply off the charts. Wang Ming. Wang Ling. So what do you mean? Wang Ming already understood a little. Li Mingyao revealed a very refined smile. Luck is something that is illusory, but it is a real thing. As for the method of accumulation, apart from doing good deeds to accumulate immortal fate and luck, there is actually a very simple method, and that is to be with people with high luck. Wang Ming had a black question mark on his face. Together. Of course I'm not talking about growing old together. Being friends or brothers is fine too. Li Mingyao realized that what he had just said was indeed a little ambiguous, so he quickly corrected himself. Luck is contagious. Do you know that? Wang Ling and Wang Ming. Li Mingyao. In our Li family, there are 4 heirs in my generation, and they're all studying in different high schools. Furthermore, the other 3 are all abroad. Once we graduate from grade 3, it will be our family's young master succession ceremony. Choosing a young master should depend on one's own ability. Trickery isn't the way to go, Wang Ming said. He could more or less understand why Li Mingyao was so anxious to find Wang Ling. No, this teacher doesn't understand. Actually, in terms of overall strength, our Li family's 4 heirs are actually pretty much the same, whether it's in terms of learning, intelligence, talent or other attributes. So in the end, the only thing that will decide the outcome of the young master's succession is luck. When he said this, Li Mingyao's expression was extremely urgent. I've already said everything I need to say. This is why I'm so anxious to find Shifu Wang Ling. Wang Ling. How did he become Shifu? Li Mingyao. You two probably don't know yet, right? Actually, classmate Wang Ling has a nickname outside the school. Wang Ming. Nickname. Li Mingyao. Fortune Emperor. Wang Ling and Wang Ming. Li Mingyao. As long as you two are willing to help me find classmate Wang Ling, I'm willing to pay you a considerable sum. As for other conditions, you can also raise them. My Li family's resources should be enough to meet your needs. Wang Ming crossed his arms. If we didn't know, would you have asked someone else? There were a lot of people from number 60 high school who had come this time, and after the incident with President Bai last time, most of the number 60 high school freshmen basically knew what Wang Ling looked like. But contrary to Wang Ming's expectations, Li Mingyao shook his head. No, I asked a lot of my friends from number 60 high school before, but they all said that they had no impression of classmate Wang Ling. After Li Mingyao said this, Wang Ming saw the corners of Wang Ling's lips curl up slightly, and it was instantly dawned on him. It turned out that this little brother had already tampered with it. No wonder he could come to the canteen so calmly. This was the upgraded version of Wang Ling's great shielding spell. It was only after the incident with President by this time that Wang Ling had specially adjusted this spell. With the help of the upgraded version of the great shielding spell, Wang Ling was like a signal tower, and only people within 3 meters of him could recall memories of him. Of course, there were also some people whom Wang Ling had designated to be on the white list and wouldn't be blocked. But most of these people on the white list were people who were usually close to Wang Ling. Apart from his relatives, there was also his scapegoat disciple Ajua, his friends in the Cultivation Forum, and some teachers at school. Seeing that Wang Ming and Wang Ling weren't saying anything, Li Mingyao seemed to already be convinced that they knew Wang Ling, and he started to raise the stakes. As long as the two of you are willing to help me find classmate Wang Ling, I'm willing to provide internal accounts for the 4 Cool Collection app, from level 1 to level 3. No, level 4. As long as it's in the 4 Cool Collection, you can browse through level 1 to level 4 skill scrolls as you please. After Li Mingyao said this, Wang Ming and Wang Ling stood up at the same time. Sorry, we don't know classmate Wang Ling. Go ask someone else. Wang Ming patted Li Mingyao lightly on the shoulder. Before Li Mingyao could reply, Wang Ming immediately stared at him and shouted, "Thank you," giving him a taste of his own medicine. Chapter 721. After this incident with Li Mingyao, Wang Ling realized that he was now completely famous, and it was very likely that some of the big families in Songhai City had already noticed him. The 4 aristocratic families of Songhai that Li Mingyao mentioned before were a classic example. Being targeted by these 4 aristocratic families was enough to prove the severity of the problem. Fortunately, Wang Ling himself wasn't stupid, and had long been prepared for this. With the upgraded version of the Great Shielding Spell, it was almost impossible to find out anything about him, but this also made him a little worried. Previously, the Demon Hunters Association had been unable to track him, so they had started to attack the people around him. Almost everyone who was close to him was in trouble. And this time, was Night Chief's revenge plan, which was far away overseas, really just directed at him? Wang Ling felt that things weren't as simple as they seemed. There was about half an hour left after lunch, and under Wu Jinjuan's direction, the Rainbow Glass Box was about to reach the security base station in the central area of Beast King's remains. Before the box landed on the ground, all the dormitories received something. A custom-made intelligent wristwatch. Because all the students' electronic devices had been confiscated, Huaxiu Alliance had taken various factors into account, and specially customized intelligent wristwatches that could be used inside Beast King's remains. Furthermore, they had set up a temporary signal tower inside the Rainbow Glass Box, which could cover most of Beast King's remains. This wristwatch did not have any camera functions, but it could be used to set up chat groups and discussion groups for students from different schools to communicate and get to know each other. Of course, the most important thing was that the watch was also a safeguard. There was a one-button SOS software inside. A light press of the button was equivalent to launching a virtual signal flare, allowing the Rainbow Glass Box to immediately receive the student's location within the ruins. Like everyone else, when Wang Ling received his wristwatch, a chat group had already been set up. This was the total number of people in the Beast King's Remains summer camp. There were more than 1,000 of them. Unfortunately, there was an AI identification function on the wristwatch. Therefore, everyone who joined the group was registered with their real names. As long as they put on the wristwatch, they would automatically join the group. Then, the software would automatically change the name according to the identification. In the end, as soon as Wang Ling joined the group, the number of messages in the group directly exploded. Wow! Wang Ling? Which Wang Ling? Don't tell me it's that Fate Emperor? What? Wang Ling had joined the group? May I ask which dorm classmate Wang Ling is in? Can I get his autograph? Classmate Wang Ling, please take a photo with me. Wang Ling. The upgraded version of the Great Shielding Spell could block out people who wanted to ask for his personal information, and it could also be used online. But Wang Ling never expected so many people to pay attention to him after the incident with President Bai. Fortunately, the effects of the upgraded Great Shielding Spell were still very obvious. Although a bunch of people in the group were asking for news about Wang Ling, no one could answer them at all. Except for those from number 60 high, the students from the other universities in the group couldn't help sighing with emotion. Number 60 high was really united. So many people actually kept their mouths shut, and no one was willing to divulge any information about Wang Ling. Actually, everyone could understand. After all, a lot of the information was a student's personal privacy, and number 60 high might have already warned the students before they set off. After all, Wang Ling was still in the eye of the storm. If they didn't suppress this matter, it would really affect their lives. But the teachers and students of the other universities never expected that number 60 high, as a key city high school candidate, would actually be united to this extent. It wasn't just the teachers, even the students weren't willing to divulge any information about Wang Ling. What kind of spirit of unity was this? For a moment, a lot of students and teachers from other schools couldn't help staring at the screen and sighing with emotion. In the last few months, number 60 high had been in the news the most in Shanghai City. One moment, it had been ambushed by killers, the next, it had been disrupted by the 1,000-year-old devil emperor during the military training, and the next, it had been the retaliation of a spirit beast poaching organization. In the end, number 60 high had resolved all of it one by one. It turned out that this was the power of unity. In the room, Li Mingyao, who had asked for information about Wang Ling before, was lost in deep thought for a long time. The dormitory was a two-person room, and Li Mingyao's roommate was Zhou Yuzheng, the third young master of the Zhou family, one of the four big families in Shanghai City. In some ways, Li Mingyao and Zhou Yuzheng could be considered birds of a feather. First of all, both of them were the third young masters of their families, and they both studied at Remnant High. In addition, their realms were about the same, and they were evenly matched in the competition between young masters of the same generation. Hence, both of them were in dire need of luck. If they wanted to win the succession ceremony for the family's young master position after their senior year of high school, apart from improving their own cultivation, it would be best if they could make friends with someone with great luck. After the incident with President Bai, both of them had set their sights on Wang Ling at the same time, and had come up with a comprehensive plan to rope him in. Because the news reports said that this classmate Wang Ling was only at the middle foundation establishment stage, their plan to rope him in had been tailor-made. Not to mention a middle foundation establishment cultivator, they wouldn't even reject a late foundation establishment cultivator, or even a golden core cultivator. The benefits and treatment they offered were several times better than what cultivators on the market usually offered. After seeing how tight-lipped number 60 high was in the chat group, Zhou Yuzheng and Li Mingyao were silent for a long time. After a long while, Li Mingyao was the first to speak. I never thought that number 60 high would actually be so united. I ran into a number 60 high teacher and a classmate in the canteen earlier. They clearly know about Wang Ling, but they refused to say anything. I'm thinking, should we be more low-key? Zhou Yuzheng asked. Low-key? What do you mean? Think about it. If we mention the names of the four big families right off the bat, won't that be too high profile, and will make people feel disgusted instead? Zhou Yuzheng analyzed unhurriedly, so I think we should move them with sincerity and quietly make a fortune. Li Mingyao. Brother Zhou means, I don't think our position with classmate Wang Ling is very clear. If we want to ask number 60 high for information on classmate Wang Ling, we shouldn't show ourselves as young masters. That's too high profile. Zhou Yuzheng. So we might as well directly say in the group that we're classmate Wang Ling's underlings. Maybe we can directly lure classmate Wang Ling out. Chapter 722. Zhou Yuzheng and Li Mingyao thought about it, and suddenly felt that this plan was brilliant. It had completely reached the level of a god. No matter how tight-lipped the teachers and students of number 60 high were, could that classmate Wang Ling really continue to be indifferent to the two young masters of the Shanghai family? At the end of the day, in the eyes of Zhou Yuzheng and Li Mingyao, the vast majority of foundation establishment cultivators did not have such high standards. The reason why they were so confident in this regard was that after the incident with President Bai, they had privately sent people to gather some information on Wang Ling, and the results showed that this student Wang Ling had once received government subsidies. Although he hadn't seen what the subsidy was, since he had accepted it, it was obvious that this classmate Wang Ling's family wasn't very well off. Zhou Yuzheng and Li Mingyao both felt that they had now given this classmate Wang Ling a way to get in touch with the upper class. As long as he continued to launch a sugar-coated attack, there shouldn't be any reason he couldn't win. Wang Ling already couldn't be bothered to look at the chat group. which was now filled with all sorts of questions. He wasn't used to having too much contact with people he didn't know well. Back then, Audjua had gone through a lot of trouble to find him. In the end, the reason why Wang Ling had accepted Audjua as his disciple wasn't just because Audjua had given him a Crispy Noodle Snacks membership card when he had paid him a visit. In the end, giving him a card was just a bonus. Thus, what Wang Ling valued more was the connection between fate and destiny. Ever since the descent of the gate between worlds 6 years ago, when Audjua had taken the blame for Wang Ling for the first time, this connection between their fates had already been formed. So for Wang Ling, Audjua was someone who had already entered his destiny and was naturally different from a passerby. Of course, he had always felt that there was nothing special about him since he was a child, and that he was just an ordinary child who couldn't control his strength very well. He liked to eat snacks, watch anime, and pay attention to and discuss some hot news in society. Of course, he also liked the sugar-coated bullets that Zhou Yuzheng and Li Mingyao mentioned, but these things had to be done in the right way. Wang Ling really didn't dare take something that was given to him for free. The heavenly Tao law of equivalent exchange had been deeply ingrained in his heart since he was young. There was no such thing as a free lunch in this world. Everything has its own price. Hence, he couldn't be bothered to care about Zhou Yuzheng and Li Mingyao. On the other hand, Wang Ming was amused. That Li Mingyao just now was a typical second-generation rich young master. Wang Ming had initially been thinking about whether to tease this person and give him a demerit, but now things had become even more interesting. 2 of them had come at once. Even the third young master of the Zhou family, Zhou Yuzheng, was drawn into it. This was double the fun. There was less than half an hour left before the rainbow glass box arrived at their destination. But Li Mingyao and Zhou Yuzheng began to stir up trouble in the group chat. Li Mingyao directly made an announcement in the group, as if he was making a public announcement. My friends from number 60 high, it doesn't matter if you don't say anything. Zhou Yuzheng and I have already found classmate Wang Ling and acknowledged him as our big brother. If you don't believe me, you can ask him later. As soon as he said that, most of the people in the group were shocked. He didn't sound like he was joking, because if he was joking he would at least add a funny at the end of the sentence, right? Moreover, this was a large group, and there were teachers from various schools in it. Li Mingyao and Zhou Yuzheng were the young masters of the Li and Zhou families, one of the 4 big families in Songhai City. At school, even the teachers had to give them some face, and didn't dare criticize them too harshly. Now they had actually announced that they were that classmate Wang Ling's underlings. This time, it wasn't just the students and teachers from other schools in the group, even the students and teachers from number 60 high were dumbfounded. Given Wang Ling's personality, the first reaction of many people from number 60 high was that he wasn't this kind of person. Not only was his grades mediocre, he also didn't like to talk much. If it wasn't for the incident with President by this time, perhaps a lot of people wouldn't have taken Wang Ling to heart. To sum it up, in the eyes of many people from number 60 high, Wang Ling was a little like a lone ranger. It was only his classmates like Super Chun and Dopey Gua who didn't think so. It was true that Wang Ling usually didn't like to talk much, and had an aloof attitude toward outsiders because he wasn't familiar with them. But in the end, this bunch of people from grade 1, class 3 had been studying together for almost half a semester. Thus, when Wang Ling wasn't in class, Super Chun, Dopey Gua and the other students from grade 1, class 3 had once had a heated discussion about Wang Ling's true nature. In the end, they summed it up in one word. Inwardly coquettish, but inwardly coquettish was inwardly coquettish. It really wasn't like Wang Ling to take in underlings. Thus, people from number 60 high began to question the authenticity of this matter. Are you serious? Why don't I believe it? The first person to raise the question was Dopey Gua, Wang Ling's deskmate. Actually, even if Wang Ling didn't use the Great Shielding spell, while the rest of the people from No. 60 high couldn't guarantee it, there was absolutely no one in grade 1, class 3 who would easily reveal information about Wang Ling to this bunch of people from other schools. As the saying went, a friend in need is a friend indeed. When they heard that Wang Ling had met with misfortune, everyone in grade 1, class 3 had been heartbroken for a long time. The most important thing was that the students and parents who had recently come to number 60 high to pay their respects to Wang Ling were actually pretty disgusted by them. This Li Mingyao and Zhou Yuzheng are fishing, aren't they? Super Chen analyzed in the room. He and Dopey Gua had been assigned to the same room. Actually, anyone who used their brains a little would be able to guess what these two rich young masters were thinking. But even so, there were still people who took the bait. Li Mingyao and Zhou Yuzheng's words instantly stirred up the mood in the group, and there were even people who were asking for Wang Ling's room number. This is a good opportunity. Li Mingyao's face lit up when he saw the constant messages in the group. As long as someone asks that classmate Wang Ling later, we'll know who on earth he is, Zhou Yuzheng said with a smile. In the end, no sooner had Zhou Yuzheng and Li Mingyao finished talking than a system notification immediately came through in the chat group. System notification. User Li Mingyao has been muted for 6 hours. System notification. User Zhou Yuzheng has been muted for 6 hours. Li Mingyao and Zhou Yuzheng. Wang Ming had activated his skill, the authority muting spell. It was Wang Ming who had designed this internal chat software to begin with, and he had the highest level of authority. Muting 2 people was a piece of cake. Done. Wang Ming clapped his hands. Daring to bully Wang Ling? These 2 guys had guts. Chapter 723. Wang Ming's power to mute them caught Li Mingyao and Zhou Yuzheng off guard. They were from the 4 big families of Songhai, and even the headmaster had to be respectful when he saw them. There was actually a teacher who dared to directly mute them. Li Mingyao and Zhou Yuzheng felt that this was inconceivable. The most important thing was that they were in the main group. Being banned like this, the 2 of them instantly felt like they had lost face. What would the people in the group who knew their identities think of them? Instantly, Li Mingyao and Zhou Yuzheng felt like they had suffered a setback. Li Mingyao was also stupefied. I'll go look for our teacher and ask if he can unban us. All the lead teachers in this summer camp chat group had been set up as administrators. Li Mingyao pondered the feasibility of this method, and then quickly started to send a message to the lead teacher. In the end, the message directly turned into an exclamation mark, which was a sign that the other party hadn't received the message. System message. During the ban period, you have been placed on the private chat blacklist, and you have no right to private chat with anyone in the group. Time remaining for the ban: 5 hours and 58 minutes. Li Mingyao and Zhou Yuzheng. Being banned also had a blacklist effect? What the hell was going on? Wang Ming could already imagine the flustered and exasperated looks on these 2 young masters' faces. He had just set up the blacklist effect. Wang Ming had expected that Li Mingyao and Zhou Yuzheng, these 2 young masters, would definitely ask the lead teacher to lift the ban in a private chat, so he had spent about 30 seconds rewriting the new rules just now. Apart from Wang Ming and Wu Zhenjuan, who had the highest administrative authority, the other administrators could only be banned and not unbanned. Furthermore, once they were banned, they would be blacklisted by the system based on the duration of the ban. This sort of in for a penny, in for a pound attitude was quite in line with Wang Ming's temperament. The point was that it wasn't just Li Mingyao and Zhou Yuzheng who were stupefied by this ban. Even the teachers from Remnant High were shaken when they saw it. Then Li Mingyao and Zhou Yuzheng's lead teacher directly sent a private message to Wang Ming. Teacher Wang Shower from number 60 High? Why did you mute my student? The lead teacher was called Yuan Hua, and he was a graduate of Jinghua Imperial Teachers College. Before confirming that they were going to participate in this summer camp, Wang Ming had looked up all the teachers' information. This teacher Yuan Hua's qualifications weren't simple, and the chief commander of the team this time, Wu Zhenjuan, had in fact graduated from this Royal Teachers College. Furthermore, back then Wu Zhenjuan and this teacher Yuan Hua had been listed as outstanding graduates of the century. Their photos were still hanging in the university's history museum, and there were very few people who could obtain the qualification to graduate from the Royal Normal College in the past 100 years. Including teacher Yuan Hua and Wu Zhenjuan, Jinghua Imperial Normal College had only given awards to 7 people in total. Because of this, these 7 graduates were known as the 7 Academies of the Emperor. Considering the future development relationship between number 60 High and other schools, Wang Ming tried his best to reply to this remnant high teacher in a calm tone. Teacher Yuan, your student is spreading rumors about my student. I'm already being very polite by only banning him for 6 hours. Anyone who spreads rumors outside will be detained for at least 7 to 15 days if it's forwarded more than 500 times. So many people in our group saw it, and I'm only banning him for 6 hours. I'm already giving Remnant High and you a discount. This teacher Yuan Hua was speechless for a moment. What F*** king discount? Teacher Yuan Hua took a deep breath and tried to remain calm. Teacher Wang, you should know the identities of these two students, right? I do. Wang Ming quickly replied. They are the 3 young masters of the Li and Zhou families of Songhai's 4 big families. So I'm banning Li Mingyao and Zhou Yuzheng. What does it have to do with the 3 young masters? Yuan Hua. Teacher Wang, for the sake of the future development between our 2 schools, I think it's better if you unmute them. The rainbow glass box is about to land at the base station. Can you bear the responsibility if the students on both sides become unhappy because of this? Wang Ming had to say. Teacher Yuan Hua's words actually made a lot of sense. Number 60 High was a candidate for a key high school in the city, while Remnant High was a famous key high school in another district. Students from such a key high school had a very strong collective sense of honor. Although everyone had come to this summer camp for the purpose of learning and to make progress together, in fact, in the process of learning and broadening their horizons, there were also activities similar to high school competitions. And this was what teacher Yuan Hua was probably talking about. What if those Remnant High students disregarded their friendship in the competition and went all out? Seeing that Wang Ming hadn't replied for a long time, Yuan Hua was a little impatient. Teacher Wang, have you thought about it? Wang Ming typed in reply, let me think about it a bit more. After about 2 minutes, another system message popped up. System message. User, Yuan Hua has been banned for 6 hours. Yuan Hua. Everyone. As a graduate of Jinghua Imperial Teachers College and a special grade teacher with the title of Emperor's 7 Schools of Learning, Yuan Hua was actually very popular at Remnant High. Not only were the other teachers at Remnant High dumbfounded by this sudden ban, many of the students instantly voiced their dissatisfaction. A Remnant High student directly asked in the main group, what right do you have to ban teacher Yuan Hua? Wang Ming wasn't in a hurry to answer, and instead sent a screenshot of teacher Yuan Hua's previous chat history. Teacher Yuan wanted to talk to me in private, but we're all cultured people. How can we bow down to the rich and powerful? However, the Remnant High student didn't buy it. I don't believe it. This picture is definitely photoshopped. Teacher Yuan is so cultured. He wouldn't do such a thing. How can a teacher from number 60 High allow this girl to slander him? Wang Ming laughed and swiftly replied. Silence is golden. Can a cultured person's ban be counted as a ban? The student who had argued blushed and couldn't help retorting. So what if you have authority? Wang Ming. Sorry, I have authority. I can really do whatever I want. Everyone. On the other side, the muted teacher Yuan Hua had a gloomy expression on his face. He had Wu Zhenjuan as a friend to begin with, so it couldn't be considered a private message at all, and he hadn't been blacklisted by Wang Ming. Wu Zhenjuan, isn't this teacher Wang a little too much? Teacher Yuan couldn't help complaining. He should apologize. After a long while, Wu Zhenjuan replied. That's right, he should apologize. What I mean is, take the 2 students who have been muted and apologize to him. Chapter 724. Wu Zhenjuan's words silenced teacher Yuan Hua, because his serious tone didn't sound like he was joking. It wasn't until that moment that teacher Yuan Hua realized that Li Mingyao and Zhou Yuzheng, these 2 young masters of Songhai's aristocratic families, might have really provoked a big shot who couldn't be provoked, even though he didn't know who on earth this big shot was. Everyone in the group was using their real names, so it was impossible for them to be fake. Staring at Wang Ming's fake name Wang Shower, Yuan Hua racked his brain over and over again, but couldn't come up with a single clue. Who on earth was this Wang Shower? Teacher Yuan Hua's mind was a little blank. Just before the rainbow glass box landed on the ground, Li Mingyao and Zhou Yuzheng received a message asking them to apologize to teacher Wang Xiao'er when the box landed. In order to highlight the seriousness of the matter, teacher Yuan Hua had personally come to their dormitory this time to tell them about it. In the end, Li Mingyao and Zhou Yuzheng had no choice but to leave. But the two of them hadn't quelled the fire that was chasing after Shifu Wang Ling. On the other side, General Bai had led Songhai First Prison's Mahjong squad into the fake remains along with the team of experts and the foreign forces dispatched by Night Chief. They had entered disguised as a medical team. Everyone was wearing a large white coat, and they had made a simple disguise on their appearance. This fake remains was a small world that had been specially created. The layout inside was a perfect replica of the environment inside Beast King's remains, and even some of the vegetation had been restored. The place where they had landed was the fake central base station in the fake remains, which looked exactly the same as the real one. Everyone stood in front of the base station. Sarira grass? The old devil's gaze was fixed on a three-colored grass which gave off a rainbow halo. This was Sarira grass, a completely extinct resource that had once been the main ingredient in making the 9 cycles Sarira pill. The 9 cycles Sarira pill was a powerful healing drug that could bring the dead back to life, and was also known as the resurrection pill. Even if one's golden core was shattered or their nascent soul disintegrated, a 9 cycles Sarira pill could immediately turn the situation around. The old devil remembered looking up the price of the 9 cycles Sarira elixir on the black market when he had just been born. Since the disappearance of the Sarira grass, the price of the 9 cycles Sarira elixir had skyrocketed, and was more than 100 times more expensive than before. Its price was comparable to a first-grade sacred artifact. While the old devil was pondering this, several foreign forces who had been hiding among the experts in the ruins flashed past and swiftly scattered in all directions. These dozens of figures each displayed their own divine abilities and fled extremely quickly. Riding on all kinds of magic treasures, he flew in all directions. One of them even boldly stretched out his hand in an attempt to snatch the Sarira grass that the old devil was eyeing. Ha 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 ha. I got it. The man took out a scythe magic weapon, and after harvesting the Sarira grass, he stepped on the scythe and quickly escaped. They took off the robes of the experts to reveal the exclusive pitch-black cloaks of Night Chief. The logo on the cloaks was a purple sunflower wrapped in black wings, which looked a little frightening. General Bai's gaze swept across the area, and immediately counted all the streaks of light that had flown out. There were a total of 53 foreign forces in this wave. This number was exactly the same as the number of people they had targeted when they had entered the fake remains. General Bai distributed several pocket watches to the old devil and the others. This is radar tracking. Apart from the Mahjong squad, everyone else must split up. If you run into a troublesome opponent, you can press the button on the radar, and the people nearby will immediately rush over to support you. They should soon realize that these are fake remains. To prevent these people from working together to break through the blockade, please capture them as quickly as possible. What should we do with the resources that have been stolen? Someone asked. Don't worry about them, they're fake to begin with. General Bai waved his hand. These are all high-quality replicas. The head of state has a floral arrangement master who can create fake resources that are lifelike. In order to set up these fake remains, this master worked overtime for half a month. Then why does the Sarira grass still glow? Well, this is what the floral arrangement master learned from the fake merchants. Previously, Huaxiao Alliance cracked down on a group of fake merchants, some of whom sold fluorescent face masks. Later, the floral arrangement master learned this method and used it to arrange flowers. After them, at General Bai's command, the 3 members of the Mahjong squad were already the first to rush out. The reduction in their sentences this time was very important for the 3 of them. Apart from special personnel, each person they caught was worth 20 points, and every 10 points could reduce their sentence by 1 year. Judging from the current sentencing standards for these 3 people, each of them would be sentenced to several thousand years or more, so points were very important. Although these 53 people weren't a lot, some of them were extremely strong and belonged to the category of special personnel. Each of these special personnel was worth 500 points, which was the highlight of the show. Thus, the old devil had already locked onto the auras of these special personnel at the base station. Among the 53 people, there were only 4 special personnel with 500 points. If he could catch all of them, that would be 2,000 points, which could directly reduce his sentence by 200 years. As he worked out his plan, the old devil approached the position of the special personnel whom he had his eye on earlier. The special personnel whom the old devil had his eye on was a mercenary whom Night Chief had hired from the Dark Network. He was also a Red A wanted criminal on the run who was currently wanted by Huashio Alliance, and was nicknamed Bloody Butterfly. At that moment, not long after Bloody Butterfly scuttled out, a piercing sense of fear directly surged up her back. This somewhat familiar aura instantly made Bloody Butterfly stop flying, and she directly concealed her aura as she hid herself in the mountains below. Bloody Butterfly's stealth technique was profound and unfathomable. She used the mimicry technique to mimic the effects of a spirit beast's camouflage, and directly merged with her surroundings. This was a more advanced technique than the invisibility technique, because her presence would also melt into the air under the mimicry technique. This was originally an extremely profound escape technique. Bloody Butterfly had used this technique to avert danger several times in the past. But this time, Bloody Butterfly sensed that something was amiss. Even when she used the mimicry spell, she felt a terrifying and familiar aura stick to her like a piece of chewing gum. A shiver that came from the depths of her soul made her twin ponytails tremble uncontrollably. This aura, who on earth was it? Come out, my venerable self can already see you. Just then, the old devil's voice came from behind Bloody Butterfly. At the same time, the old devil cancelled his simple transfiguration spell and revealed his original appearance. This face of the Devil Emperor, who had once shocked the whole of Huashio Nation, almost instantly scared Bloody Butterfly into a cold sweat. How could it be him? Chapter 725. There was a frightened expression on Bloody Butterfly's face. In her camouflage state, she didn't dare move at all, but the old devil was already slowly walking in her direction. I haven't really been discovered, have I? Bloody Butterfly was so nervous that a waterfall of sweat was running down her face. When the old devil was less than 30 feet away from her, Bloody Butterfly's footsteps shook as she straightaway cancelled her camouflage and swiftly distanced herself from the old devil. So you're here. The old devil slowly looked at Bloody Butterfly. Bloody Butterfly was so angry that her twin ponytails shook. She realized that she had probably been tricked. This guy hadn't noticed her at all just now. My venerable self only knew your approximate location. I didn't expect to really force you out when I got closer. The old devil chuckled. Bloody Butterfly. Sure enough, those who played tactics had dirty hearts. But it won't be so easy for you to escape from my venerable self now. The old devil pointed at Bloody Butterfly's feet. There was a puzzled expression on Bloody Butterfly's face. She looked down and turned pale. She had no idea when this devil had written a tracking mark on her feet. Had it been the moment she had revealed herself just now? This reaction was too terrifying. Bloody Butterfly felt increasingly nervous in the face of this devil, who had once shaken the whole nation. In general, the old devil felt that this Bloody Butterfly was a pretty good opponent. At the very least, it was a good match for his current physical strength. The old devil was still in the process of adapting to this fake body, and his ability to coordinate all aspects of his body had yet to reach saturation. It was a far cry from his original body before he had entered the stone ghost mask. If he wanted to quickly adapt to his body, fighting would always be the fastest way. Usually trapped in prison, the old devil could at most beat up evil Sword God. Thus, helping the government clean up foreign terrorists and capturing members of the Dark Network this time wasn't just a journey to atone for his crimes, but also a rare opportunity to fight. The old devil judged that this Bloody Butterfly's strength was around the peak of soul formation level 9, and she was only half a step away from itinerant immortal realm. Although the old devil's current body was an imitation and wasn't at its peak, it still had the strength of an itinerant immortal. Although his realm was higher than Bloody Butterfly's, The compatibility of his physical body was truly unflattering. Thus, the moment he faced Bloody Butterfly, the old devil had already come up with a plan. In this battle, the best-case scenario was to avoid physical contact. Dark web fugitives like Bloody Butterfly lived on the edge of a knife every day, so melee combat was a common occurrence for them. His body had not fully adapted yet, so he would be at a great disadvantage if he were to engage in a prolonged melee combat. Besides, he was a mage to begin with. He was not used to using Dharma artifacts like swords and sabers, so now the question was, what kind of spell should he use to deal with this Bloody Butterfly? The old devil was at a loss. The Chaos Ball was the technique he was famous for, but in the face of a small dark network wanted criminal, the old devil felt that this Bloody Butterfly was still a little lacking. If he directly took out the Chaos Ball, the old devil felt that this game would be meaningless. If he took out the Primal Chaos Ball, he could fight 10 of them. While the old devil was pondering this, there was the sound of wind in front of him as the Bloody Butterfly attacked. The best defense is offense. This was the final decision Bloody Butterfly made as her body was drenched in cold sweat. A slender, pitch-black shadow scuttled out from under the tree and swiftly circled behind the old devil, like a nimble tentacle. Double ponytail stab. This pitch-black shadow was none other than Bloody Butterfly's double ponytails. In order to have one more life-saving magic treasure, Bloody Butterfly had long ago tempered her twin ponytails into a killing magic weapon. This was a surprise attack, but it didn't succeed. The moment the shadow attacked, the old devil had already swiftly made a decision based on his rich experience. A light shield with a spiral pattern quickly condensed around his body, firmly protecting him like an eggshell, perfectly blocking the sneak attack of the shadow. Incorporeal Magic Shield. This was a grade 5 spell. It could block magic attacks. Bloody Butterfly gritted her teeth. Just from this spell alone, she could already sense how troublesome this devil was. The most frightening thing was that the old devil had cast this grade 5 spell instantaneously, without any hand seals. A spell without hand seals. This was proof that his proficiency in spells had already reached the peak. There was no doubt that this was a fearsome opponent, but Bloody Butterfly didn't give up on attacking. The Shadow's surprise attack just now had just been a feint. A real attack. Behind him. Just then, a blood-red dagger stabbed behind the old devil. Holding the dagger, Bloody Butterfly smiled cruelly. She was about to succeed. Her blood-edge blade was an extremely powerful magic weapon designed for assassination. It had the effect of true damage. Regardless of whether it was a shield or armor, it would be useless in front of this dagger. A substitute. The old devil's face was unruffled. It had to be said that Bloody Butterfly's plan seemed to be going very smoothly so far, and it indeed felt impossible to guard against it. In the blink of an eye, the old devil had created a substitute to feint an attack, and the old devil's real body had snuck up behind him to stab him with the blood blade. This series of movements could be said to be as smooth as flowing water. If it had been anyone else, they might have already been severely injured. But Bloody Butterfly still underestimated the opponent in front of her. The next moment, Bloody Butterfly's smile froze. The moment the blood blade stabbed the old devil's back, Bloody Butterfly felt her scalp tighten as the old devil firmly grabbed her twin ponytails. F***K. It hurts, it hurts, it hurts, it hurts. The pain of having her hair pulled by a boy in the back row in junior high came back, and Bloody Butterfly's scalp went numb in an instant. She felt like she had been completely led away. The old devil didn't cast any spells, and just grabbed her twin ponytails, instantly reversing the situation. Your hair is pretty smooth, but it's still a little worse than my wife's. The old devil grabbed the twin ponytails and sighed with emotion. General E had promised him before that he would help him activate the Mirror of Reincarnation to find his wife's reincarnation, but there had been no news until now. Now that he had caught hold of these two soft twin ponytails, the old devil was instantly reminded of her. You let go of me. Bloody Butterfly, who had been caught, had no strength to resist at all. You broke the rules. Aren't you a mage? How can you do such a vulgar thing? It could be said that the old devil's move was completely beyond Bloody Butterfly's expectations. Sure enough, did every mage dream of melee combat? Grabbing Bloody Butterfly's twin ponytails, the old devil cast the weakness magic ring at the same time. And Bloody Butterfly instantly felt weak all over. Affected by the weakness magic ring, Bloody Butterfly said in a weak voice, What do you want to do? Don't worry, my venerable self doesn't want to do anything. It's just that when I touched your twin ponytails, I suddenly thought of my wife. The old devil stared at the limp Bloody Butterfly on the ground, and the smile on his face gradually turned wicked. My venerable self has now decided to cut off your twin ponytails. Bloody Butterfly, are you a pervert? The old devil shook his head and sighed. Even if I am, I'm just a gentleman with the title of pervert. Chapter 726. With her twin ponytails pulled, Bloody Butterfly's eyes turned red from the pain. At that moment, she felt like a rabbit whose ears had been grabbed by a hunter. And the most frightening thing was that this hunter was going to cruelly cut off her ears. These twin ponytails were one of the magic weapons she was most proud of. And now she was actually going to have to say goodbye to them. Bloody Butterfly stared at the old devil in despair. At that moment, she felt that her life was bleak. As a national Red-A dark network wanted criminal, what was she going to face next? At that moment, crystalline tears welled up in the corners of Bloody Butterfly's eyes, but she didn't make a sound, because under the effect of the old devil's weakening halo, she didn't even have the strength to cry. Right now, Bloody Butterfly was facing a situation where it could only be slaughtered. Don't cry, my venerable self is most afraid of seeing a woman cry. The old devil stared at the tearful Bloody Butterfly with a complicated expression on his face. He suddenly recalled the scene when he had just met his wife Yamai. In class back then, he had pulled Yamai's hair. And in the end, she had cried for the first time. Now that Bloody Butterfly was crying like a pear blossom in the rain, the old devil actually had the illusion that he was looking at his own wife. Bloody Butterfly had thought that after the old devil had vented his conscience, he would at least let her twin ponytails go. Who knew that the old devil's next words would make Bloody Butterfly completely despair? The old devil took a deep breath and said with a hint of longing in his voice, When you cry, you look just like my wife. Can my venerable self dig out one of your eyes? Bloody Butterfly was so scared that her tears instantly stopped. She finally realized why this old devil had been able to plunge the entire Huaxio nation into black terror back then. Mom, I want to go home. Elsewhere, Chengyu and Evil Sword God's pursuit was also going smoothly. They chased after Bloody Butterfly using the military magic swords that General Bai had given them. Because they were mass-produced by the military, they were all the same in terms of power, and even the sword spirits inside them had been artificially injected. This was an assembly line product, and certainly couldn't compare to custom-made magic swords. However, if the user was a swordsman, they could still unleash great power, because they were both cultivators of the sword arts department. The two of them were very familiar with the method of riding a sword to chase. Furthermore, General Bai had unlocked Evil Sword God's purple investigative demon eyes this time. If Evil Sword God used it in this chase, those dozen or so foreign terrorists wouldn't be able to escape. Similarly, after Chengyu and Evil Sword God undid their transfiguration spells, these foreign powers and dark network mercenaries all cursed in their hearts at the same time. Why were these three big shots who had already been captured working together now? Evil Sword God was relentless in his pursuit. General Bai's original words were, if they could be captured alive, the reward would be full points. If these people resisted stubbornly during the pursuit, they would be executed on the spot. But if they ended up dead, the points would be halved. But Evil Sword God didn't care about this at all. Opening his purple investigative demon eyes, he went forward and started harvesting. In a temporary underground space, 12 people worked together to set up a barrier. They jointly cast an earth magic called the Earth Matrix, using the earth as the foundation to build a solid space. How could it be him? The dozen or so people couldn't help sweating. They had fled separately earlier, but because they were being chased by Evil Sword God, more and more of them slowly gathered together, planning to work together to think of a countermeasure. About 5 minutes ago, Evil Sword God had already killed 5 people, and had used the invisible sword chi in his left hand to skewer their heads one by one like candied haws. Although the barrier had already been set up, the immense pressure from evil sword god still made them feel like their throats were being strangled even though they were inside the barrier. However, these people didn't know that this wasn't evil sword god's peak state. Although General Bai had allowed the Mahjong squad to participate in the operation this time, he had still restricted the overall strength of the three of them. Currently, the Mahjong squad could only display less than 60% of their combined strength. But even so, the murderous aura that seemed to be able to destroy the world was still horrifying. Damn it! They were clearly invaders, but now they had to set up a barrier to save their lives. Evil Sword God has probably already been recruited, a man in white said in a low voice as he looked up with a deep gaze. He was also a member of the Dark Network, and like Bloody Butterfly, he was also a Red A wanted criminal. His nickname was Dark Descendant Coriander, or Dark Fragrance for short, and his real name was Killer Bunliang. Lord Dark Fragrance, what should we do? Someone asked nervously. Now that things have come to this, there's no other way. Only by using the barrier and the strength of all of us can we defend and counterattack. Lord Dark Fragrance, who was dressed in white, said slowly, since we can't win through strength, we might have a chance of survival if we have the advantage in numbers. A human wave tactic. They were all silent, lost in deep thought. Their average strength wasn't weak, and they were at level 3 of the soul formation stage. This was the manpower that Night Chief's Overseas Returnee Elite Group had been able to gather in a short time after the collective death of their group. But even if their average strength was at level 3 of the soul formation stage, it was still far from enough in the face of someone like Evil Sword God. Soul formation, itinerant immortal, true immortal. The gap between the three was like heaven and earth, and they were now like clay chickens and pottery dogs huddled in a dark cellar. This is our last chance. I suggest we listen to Lord Dark Fragrance, someone said at that moment. They looked at each other, and finally all their gazes fell on this Lord Dark Fragrance. The Dark Network man with the code name Dark Fragrance took a deep breath. First of all, I have to say that this is a forbidden spell. It will reduce your lifespan to a certain extent, but it won't be too serious. We need everyone to work together. Lord Dark Fragrance, please speak. We'll all listen to you. The 11 people said in unison. This man called Dark Fragrance said, there are about 37.2 trillion cells in the human body that work energetically every day. The function of this spell is to activate the cells, separate them from our bodies, and then summon the separated cells through a secret array. If used properly, the 12 of us together can summon an army of tens of thousands of cells. Hearing this, the 11 people were suddenly enlightened, because this Lord Dark Fragrance seemed to have originally been a biologist, and was very familiar with the structure of human cells. An army of tens of thousands of cells? That's right. There's a white cell army as the main force, and even a priest army with platelets as the main force. Next, I'll summon platelets from my body and use them as the mother, to extract some of the cells from your bodies. Chapter 727. The Cells at Work spell was a forbidden spell that no one had ever seen before, and many of them had never even heard of it. After completing the hand seal, everyone in the underground barrier saw a curse slowly form on Lord Dark Fragrance's arm, and then he swiftly bit his index finger to carve a summoning array into the ground. The array wasn't large, but its composition bewildered a lot of people here, as it was a mixture of Eastern runes and Western curse seals. Some people speculated that this was probably a combination of Eastern and Western spells, or that it had come from the West, and had finally been translated into Chinese. Sacrificing one's lifespan to separate cells, activate them, and summon them again. Such a method was truly astonishing. About 10 seconds after the formation was formed, a crack appeared on the ground. Layers of dark red blood gushed out of the crack like a fountain of blood slowly gushing out. After that, the blood spring quickly retreated, leaving behind a bloody shadow. The bloody shadow gradually solidified, and a cute little loli wearing a red dress entered everyone's sight. That's right, this is the platelet in my body, the man called Dark Fragrance said. Summoning cells to fight requires a certain amount of preparation time. So we have to summon the platelet first and have it build an even more solid defensive barrier for us. In this way, we can stall for time and summon white blood cells and macrophages to fight. So that was it. Everyone instantly understood. As expected of Lord Dark Fragrance. As a red A-class Dark Network wanted criminal, while he couldn't compare with 3S-class red wanted criminals like the Old Devil, the Master of Immortal Mansion and Evil Sword God, he had a lot more combat experience than them. And this summoned platelet was too cute. It was just like his own daughter. This caused the people present to inexplicably feel a sense of fatherly love. If they could survive this time, they had to have a daughter later. Looking at their expressions as they stared at the platelet, Dark Fragrance spoke again. Next, I will use my platelet as the parent body. You will need to rely on the parent body to perform the secondary separation spell, which is much easier than the original spell. Please be sure to remember how to draw the secondary array. Okay. The 11 members of Night Chief nodded. At that moment someone asked, Lord Dark Fragrance, will our platelets be as cute as yours? Yes. Because of the uniqueness of each person's body, the appearance of the summoned platelets may be different. This has a lot to do with the daily conditioning of the body. If you stay up late for a long time and put yourself in a subhealthy state, the summoned platelets may appear sick. As soon as he said that, Dark Fragrance saw several people's bodies tremble involuntarily. Some of them put their palms together and seemed to be praying. Ah. Great cultivation God, please bless my platelets to be more adorable. I promise. I will never top up money for Tian Mei again. While the 11 Night Chief members were hiding underground with Dark Network member Dark Fragrance, Evil Sword God was also carefully searching for their whereabouts. Just a few minutes ago, these people's auras had all disappeared in an instant. Run. Can you escape? Evil Sword God looked at the human head skewered by invisible sword chi in his left hand and licked his lips. If it weren't for the fact that his abilities were restricted to only 60% of his strength, he would be able to find this group of people even if they hid at the ends of the earth. It was just that it was a little troublesome now. No one can hide from me. Evil Sword God slowly closed his eyes and pointed the candied ha in his left hand at the sky. At that moment, the world was quiet, and he seemed to be sensing something. In the distance, Chengyu, the Master of Immortal Mansion, stood on a cliff and narrowed his eyes at Evil Sword God in the air. Sensing killing intent, Chengyu knew that this was a special skill that Evil Sword God had relied on to make his name, and it wasn't a spell. This was a special sensing skill that could only be accumulated by someone who had walked on the edge of hell all year round. By capturing the killing intent in the boundless world, he could lock onto his opponent. As long as you were on the opposite side of the battlefield, killing intent was bound to exist. No matter how well you hid it, it couldn't be erased. Especially now that you already knew who your opponent was. After capturing the killing intent, as long as you eliminated your own people, you would undoubtedly be the enemy. Was this Evil Sword God? The Master of Immortal Mansion trembled with fear. This was only 60% of Evil Sword God's battle strength. How terrifying would he be at his peak? Furthermore, Evil Sword God, who had been enhanced by eyeshadow and had let loose, was in stark contrast to the Evil Sword God who had looked very weak in prison. Chengyu felt that it wouldn't be an exaggeration to describe this contrast as a monster. Raising his sword, Chengyu also concentrated his mental strength to the extreme. He then let go of the military magic sword in his hand, and it slowly floated behind him as if it had a mind of its own. So far, he had only caught some small fry, and the special Dark Network members with 500 points were now playing hide-and-seek. But Chengyu had his own way, which was to follow Evil Sword God from behind. The move he was best at was the thousandly sword art, which allowed him to use a spirit sword to take the head of an enemy general from a very long distance. Although this was quite unscrupulous behavior, stealing kills was indeed a feasible method at the moment. There weren't many points for this operation, but as the saying went, every little makes a mickle. Every little he could fight for was naturally a little, and could be used as a bargaining chip to reduce his sentence in the future. At that moment, He saw Evil Sword God slowly open his eyes in the air and point at a piece of land dozens of li away. Hiding underground? Only children would hide underground. The group of people who had fled from Evil Sword God had already been tracked down. But just as Evil Sword God was about to make his move to reap the harvest, the whole fake remains unexpectedly shook at that moment. Earthquake? Evil Sword God and Qingyu were both puzzled. Everything in these fake remains was fake, including some natural factors. Logically speaking, it was unlikely that there would be an earthquake, unless it was man-made. While the two of them were pondering this, there was a loud bang, and the ground that Evil Sword God was staring at suddenly cracked open, covered in blood. A humanoid monster that was dozens of meters tall and looked like a giant Godzilla beast actually crawled out of the ground. Everyone was inexplicably shaken at this scene. One by one, the Huaxiao Alliance cultivators stopped their pursuit. They could sense the aura of this blood-red monster from afar. What's this? Could it be a blood demon? But why would a blood demon appear here? Elsewhere, in the underground barrier set up by Night Chief, that Lord Dark Fragrance was also frightened by this blood-red monster. More than 10 people simultaneously stared at a fatty. This blood-red monster was none other than this fatty's platelet. Lord Dark Fragrance. How was this a platelet? It was a far cry from the cute little loli that Lord Dark Fragrance had summoned. Was this AF*** King Cerebral Thrombosis? Chapter 728. In the fake remains, a blood-colored humanoid monster that was dozens of meters tall slowly stood up from the ground, and a thick, dark red liquid dripped from its body like magma. This wasn't magma, but more like a syrup-like substance. Because the fatty's blood sugar was on the high side, this humanoid platelet that had been summoned was actually very sticky. When the viscous liquid dripped from its body to the ground, it immediately stirred up the earth. No matter what it is, take it down. A Huaxiao Alliance cultivator made a move and flew his flying sword in an attempt to kill this giant blood-colored monster from behind. In the end, he was sent flying by the sticky liquid that sprayed from the monster's body. Ah! The cultivator let out a blood-curdling scream as he was directly smashed into a mountain wall in the distance. Although he only suffered some superficial injuries, his whole body was imprisoned by the mucus. This mucus was extremely sugary. What on earth is this? On the other side, the old devil, master of a mortal mansion Qingyu, Evil Sword God in general by all noticed this monster, but they had no idea what it was. This is 7,364. This is 7,364. Other Huaxiao Alliance cultivators started to call headquarters to ask about this monster's origin. In fact, General E and the others in Huaxiao Alliance's command center were also alarmed by this giant blood-colored monster that had suddenly appeared in the fake remains. Old E, what do you think? President Qi stared at the image on the screen, his mind churning as he tried to think of something. However, General E shook his head. It looks a little like a blood devil, but it doesn't look like one. The only thing we can be sure of is that this thing was summoned. If we can defeat the summoner, it might disappear. President Qi crossed his arms and narrowed his eyes. Can you analyze the substance? This fake remains was a fictional small world that was completely under Huaxiao Alliance's control, so it had a certain ability to analyze the substance of the world. When President Qi spoke, the staff at the command center had already started to analyze the creature. This process was very fast, and only took a few seconds to complete. Finally, the composition of the blood-colored giant was listed in a table and displayed on the screen. Because it had already taken human form, there was water, sugar, fat and other substances in the monster, but there was one substance that made up 70% of it. Platelet. A lot of people were astonished when they saw the results of the report. So had the platelets become sentient? What's the overall strength of this cerebral thrombosis? President Qi asked. The researchers were blank when they heard this. Cerebral thrombosis? There didn't seem to be anything wrong. Such a big lump couldn't be called a platelet at all. It's already been analyzed. His overall strength is that of a loose immortal. He should be at the third stage, a staff member replied. Third level itinerant? It looks like this thing has a parent, and its strength has been enhanced by radiation. President Qi immediately made this judgment. If it was just an ordinary summon, its realm and strength would not be so ferocious. The only possibility was that the crimson monster had a parent. The parent was constantly providing energy for it, and in the end, the overall strength of the monster became stronger. There was actually a special term for such a situation during the summoning process. It was called parent radiation. As a wisdom saint, President Qi had already come to a conclusion. Furthermore, there is a biologist on the list of Dark Network members recruited by Night Chief this time, so everything makes sense. Generally frowned. If it's as you say, old Qi, there's actually no point in simply defeating this monster. President Qi nodded and then said to the staff member at the command platform, "Tell them that they must find the mother, otherwise this blood-colored monster will keep regenerating." Platelets were cells that could stop bleeding to begin with. Now that they had formed this behemoth, their self-healing ability was naturally top-notch. At that moment, the situation in the fake remains wasn't optimistic. After the appearance of this huge blood-colored monster, several smaller blood-colored monsters emerged from the ground on the side. Although they weren't as big as this cerebral thrombosis, they were still 10 meters tall. They seemed to be guarding something. With the tallest cerebral thrombosis monster as the center, the 7 monsters lined up to form a human wall. Their bodies were covered in a blood-red color with a high sugar content, causing ripples to form on the surface. Their intention was very obvious, and that was to tell everyone. No one was allowed to pass ahead. General Bai narrowed his eyes at the 7 monsters and gave everyone an order. "Everyone, don't waste time on these monsters. We have to find the summoner and the mother as soon as possible." After learning that this was a spell called the Cells at Work spell, General Bai immediately understood the importance of time. These 7 monsters were only here to stall for time. Their real purpose was probably to summon more cells. If they waited until the white blood cells and macrophages were summoned in human form, the situation would truly be difficult to resolve. Given their current numbers, it might be difficult for them to withstand the rampage of tens of thousands of monsters. Furthermore, this was a huge limitation for General Bai himself. As Explosion Saint, all he could do when the time came was to get rid of all the monsters in one go. Given his current strength, he could blow up the entire fake remains. But when that time really came, his Huaxiao Alliance colleagues would suffer together with him. "I'll subdue these 7 monsters. Everyone, hurry up and find the summoner and the mother. They should be hiding underground." Thinking this, General Bai clenched his teeth and soared into the sky, charging toward the largest cerebral thrombosis monster. General Bai spread open his fingers, and an energy cannon shot out from his palm. Explosions were art. Boom! The head of the largest cerebral thrombosis monster was blown off. But it wasn't long before, as President Qi had predicted, after the monster's head was blown off, the mucus on its body swiftly accumulated on its neck and finally formed a new head. The largest one now was codenamed cerebral thrombosis, and was a level 3 itinerant immortal. The second was the 15-meter platelet, and was a level 2 itinerant immortal. Because its overall color was a little different from the other monsters, it was yellowish and looked very oily, so this 15-meter platelet was codenamed Fatty Liver. The third was 12 meters tall, and was a level 1 itinerant immortal. It was a little smaller than the previous 2, but its chest was extremely large, and it was codenamed Myocardial Infarction. Looking at this scene from a distance, the old devil felt that all these platelets were mutated species. Although the remaining 4 weren't as big as the previous 3, with an average height of only 5 to 7 meters, it was precisely because they were skinnier that they had the shape of their faces. Thus, 2 of them looked more fierce and sluggish, and were codenamed Brainless and Unhappy. Of the remaining 2, one was big and the other small. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.